What happened to the ordinary Japanese student Kazuki Ursula was so unbelievable that even he found it hard to accept. He had no idea what was about to come. Several years passed. Still standing in front of the mirror, lost in confusion about how everything had happened, his thoughts were suddenly interrupted by the sound of a vase breaking. A stern male voice demanded an explanation. Then a strict gentleman approached the frightened maid. Her voice shook as she pleaded for forgiveness. No apology eased the man's anger. He ordered her to be quiet and called her foolish. Despite his command, the girl cried and begged for mercy. The mother and young son only watched in silence. Kazuki could hardly believe what he saw. Everything around him looked exactly like the game Brave Hearts. It was the usual fantasy story where the main character, Reiner, had to save the world. The graphics and battles were simple for a modern game, but the characters stood out by using magic and special skills. The story was so engaging that players did not focus on the quality of the visuals. Although the game followed a linear path, it included hidden dungeons, extra story branches, a romantic storyline for the main character, and engaging dialogues. Kazuki played the game many times and became so absorbed in the adventure world that he remembered almost every line spoken by the characters. Now he found himself inside the game, right in the scene with the head of the Stokes family, Lord Hayden, his wife Jessica, and the same anxious maid. Kazuki could not understand why the characters and the whole world were acting as if everything was real. He also wondered how he missed such a major update in the game. One thing is clear. Starting the game with such a powerful and intense scene where a girl is mistreated came as a real shock. Accusations were made against him. Kazuka remembered that this scene was only a memory from the past, where Clara, the protagonist's mother, was executed by Harold, the heir of the Stokes family. In that moment, her worried mother was holding her tightly. This time, Harold stopped thinking and looked at his hands. He realized he was part of the story. Lady Jessica spoke to him by name and calmly told him not to worry. Meanwhile, Clara shook with fear and pleaded for mercy. Lord Hayden raised his sword to rid the land of what he called a worthless woman. In her last moments, Clara thought of her daughter, while Harold remembered he still had a chance to change things. Harold chose to execute Clara himself, copying what happened in the game. However, Kazuka did not agree with this, but his body moved on its own. Lord Hayden was surprised, and Harold announced his plan to use the girl as a target for a new magic spell. A calm smile appeared on his face as he said that this kind of death was the best thing that could happen to a useless woman. To simply spill her blood would be too ordinary. Lord Hayden agreed, impressed by his son's idea. He ordered the servants to throw the maid into the dungeon and keep a close watch on her. Clara was called a disgusting half-blood and told she had been given a chance, but all she did was ruin their lives and fail at everything she tried. Lady Jessica added that nothing better could be expected from such a worthless person. Now she will serve as the perfect subject for Harold's magical experiments. Playing his part, Harold thanked the parents and promised to have a good time with Clara. Kazuka pointed out that he looks much younger than in the original version of the game, even though his personality has stayed the same. Harold Stokes was arrogant, self-centered, and easily the most unpleasant character in the game Brave Hearts. In the end, the main antagonist, Joe, killed him. Kazuka had no idea why he transformed into this person and thought it was just a vivid dream. He was just an ordinary Japanese student, when a knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Seeing the butler Norman in front of him, Kazuka realized he had let him in too quickly. This was not Harold's usual way, but a sudden decision driven by his own instincts. Norman stands out as the wisest character and the conscience of the Stokes family. Throughout the story, others respected him deeply because he avoided the cruelty common in his family. Perhaps that's why Norman was only a servant and not part of the clan. He explained that he had important business with Harold, which gave him the courage to come. After carefully studying the young man's face, Norman noticed he looked tired and suggested taking a short rest, saying they could talk later. Kazuka assured that everything was fine, but his response was unusual. Even the real Harold would not speak so gently. This surprised Norman, and Kazuka tried to correct himself. Anger filled him as he realized he could not handle Harold's image again. Norman started to sense that something was off because the family heir spoke in a very different way. Finally, the observant butler made his request and asked not to punish the maid Clara too harshly. Kazuka froze for a moment because this request put him in an awkward position. The life of an innocent girl depends on him now. He is the one who decides if she will survive or not. The next step in this situation requires careful thought. The story called for Harold to ask permission to execute Clara, which was a standard part of the game, but Kazuka did not want to keep following this harsh storyline. Accepting he had become such a terrible character was difficult. Kazuka realized he needed to take action right away to save Clara, even if it went against the logic of the game. Colette, her daughter, is the main character of the story. When her mother dies, she gets forced out of her home and ends up with the main character, Reiner. But if Clara is saved now, the story takes a different turn. When destiny is real, heroes will meet no matter how difficult things get. Harold's future will be full of surprises, and Kazuka will have the chance to shape his own path. Staying close to the main story is important, because this world is full of dangers, and even a good action can quickly become deadly. By carefully shifting the direction of the story without changing its core, there is a chance to survive in this harsh fantasy. Kazuka paused to think, while Norman closely watched him, waiting for a reply. Wanting to save Clara, but needing to be careful, he put on an indifferent attitude like Harold. He started to show that he did not care about the maid's fate. These weak attempts were not enough. A clear decision was needed because the other character's hatred toward him kept growing. Kazuka chose to postpone the decision and suggested discussing Clara's fate at a later time. Norman did not expect this and wanted to ask more, but Kazuka, copying Harold, rudely told him to go away. The butler left, but before leaving, he still thanked the young man. The exhausting conversation left the boy completely drained. An ordinary student now found himself making decisions about other people's lives. He lay down on his bed and only then realized just how serious everything had become. Still, it seemed unlikely that he could change anything. Everyone saw Harold as a disgusting thief. Maybe there was no point in fighting back. Maybe after his death, he would somehow return home. But this theory seemed too risky. If dying in this world meant dying in real life, a different approach was needed. After resting, Kazura started to look around the room. Among the many items, there was an empty bottle from the elixir of life and a piece of red marble, just like in the game. The books were written in Japanese, which gave a chance to learn more. Kazura decided to follow the storyline for now to figure out how to get out of this situation. At the same time, he planned to avoid repeating the terrible things that Harold had done. Another idea suggested this might not be the Braveheart's world, but a completely different one that just looks like the game. If that's true, the rules could be very different. Before taking action, he needed to be sure this was the right world. Most importantly, he had to stay alive. Only then could everything be changed for the better and evil could be stopped. Kazura walked to the underground cell where Clara was held, still acting harsh like Harold. He asked the guard how many people were in the prison. The guard said there was only one person. Kazura told the guard to stay outside and quickly rushed into the underground room, almost scaring the man half to death. The guard barely managed to catch his breath, confused. Speaking in Harold's harsh tone, Kazura forbade anyone from entering, saying he would handle the interrogation himself. The guard did not dare object and stayed outside the door. The cell felt damp and cold, with only a faint beam of light coming in. Moving forward, Kazura noticed a dark corridor and the prison. He wanted to know if she was really Clara Everall. The frightened girl started to tremble when she saw the cruel air. She thought it was all over for her. Kazura said that although he could kill her right now, he came for a different reason. She needed to answer his questions honestly. First, he found out about her daughter. Her name was Colette. Clara had run away from home with her husband, but he died 3 years ago after a serious illness. Only now did Kazura understand why the main character lived only with her mother. Her father had died long ago, and she simply did not know about any other relatives. After asking a few more questions, he realized everything matched the storyline of the game. He also discovered some new details that had not appeared before. After the conversation ended, the Stokes heir left the damp, dark place. He said goodbye to Clara and promised they would meet again. The worried maid thought only of her daughter, knowing the girl could not survive alone in such a harsh world. She begged the young lord to take care of her child. Taking on Harold's character, Kazura called it a petty humiliation, saying Clara was just using her tears and fear to manipulate. The maid was shocked, and the heir left the gloomy cell. Deep inside, Kazura felt sorry for this unfortunate woman who had suffered because of aristocratic cruelty. Still, he could not show his feelings because he was a prisoner of his role. As soon as he returned to his room and was about to rest, the butler appeared. Norman held some documents in his hands. Kazura immediately asked about them. Norman held a detailed map of the Stokes family lands, showing even the smallest villages. Kazura realized how useful such a map could be, but he was more interested in the plan to save Clara. The old butler was clearly anxious, but he managed to compose himself and suggested a solution. Clara should leave the Stokes estate immediately. Kazura replied sharply, much like Harold would, saying the maid was worthless and that she should leave and never be seen or heard from again. Later, he specified exactly where Norman suggested sending her. It was a village called Bloch, which was an interesting coincidence because the game's main character's family lived there. Kazura felt content knowing the heroes would meet again in the future, and the main storyline would stay mostly the same. Some doubts still lingered because now they would grow up in different families, and this could affect their relationship. Kazura looked at the map with frustration and asked if it was easy to cross the feudal borders. Norman explained that regular people don't have any restrictions. Only barons and aristocrats follow rules. Clarice will have a hard time without money, so she needs some help. Kazura started planning how to help the maid escape. He considered giving her money and arranging transportation, but using a carriage with the family crest was too risky because it required a special permit. All these difficulties made the young man look for another solution. Meanwhile, Norman was surprised that the heir found out about Clara's daughter on his own and wanted to help her. It seemed amazing that this young boy cared about other people's lives, which was very different from his own parents. Norman thought about everything that had happened and realized that Harold had hidden Clara from her father on purpose. Now, at the right moment, Harold wanted to save her life. From the very beginning, Harold had been looking after the maid, but he did it so carefully that no one noticed. This made a strong impression on Norman, who promised himself to give his full support. Harold's parents were true aristocrats, who strongly believed in pure bloodlines. They looked down on even other nobles if they had any doubts about their family history. They saw common people as unworthy. Norman suggested sending Clara to a nearby town first, where the harvest festival makes it easier to find work. However, Kazura, appearing as Harold, called this a bad idea because the festival will end soon and living there is expensive. If all this is true, the young Stokes heir could bring real hope to ordinary people who have suffered for many years under the tyranny of his parents. The next day, Kazura decided to try using magic. He called up waves of fire to show his power. In just a few minutes, full focus took over as a tall, bright column of fire appeared before him. At first, delight filled him because this was the first magic he had created on his own. Later, he remembered that in the game, this spell was much more powerful. Still, using magical energy so easily felt good for someone who was simply a student now living in a game character's body. Even so, it was too soon to feel truly happy about it. While training, Kazura kept thinking about the best way to save Clara. He needed a plan to convincingly stage her disappearance. Harold knew he could not show his parents the charred body of the maid. He decided to show them only ashes, pretending she had burned completely. Kazura realized that this girl was no longer just some pixels on a screen, but a real person he needed to save tonight. If he failed, he would die much earlier than the story had planned. At night, in total darkness, the rescue mission for Clara began. Following the young lord's orders, Colette, Clara's daughter, was brought to the agreed location. Seeing her mother, Colette felt pure happiness. The emotion was overwhelming, and Kazuri struggled to keep up Harold's appearance. Thoughts raced about what would happen next, since the original game plot had already changed. He told everyone to calm down and explained they had two options. The first option was to die right there and stay together in death. The second choice is to survive by escaping from this land and never coming back, cutting all ties with the Stokes family for good. Clara felt surprised by the kindness of someone she once saw as evil. Still, Kazura, speaking with Harold's roughness, firmly told them not to waste time and to choose their future. Realizing how dangerous it was to stay, Clara thanked him and said she wanted to live. Kazura felt relieved by her choice, as he was unsure what he would have done if she had refused to escape. This solution worked perfectly. Before saying goodbye, Kazura put a special amulet on Colette. She did not know what it meant but felt too afraid to ask. Speaking with Harold's voice, he ordered her to never remove this piece of jewelry. That was his only condition for letting her escape with her mother. She agreed immediately. Kazura said to remember these words. One day she must give the amulet to the person who needs it most. This person will be her age, skilled in many things, and will promise to become a knight and protect her. Excitement made it hard for Colette to focus, so her mother repeated all of Mr. Harold's instructions to be sure she remembered them. Kazura, still pretending, told them to leave in a rough voice. Next, he told the guards to quietly lead the girls to the wagon. He made it clear they had to stay hidden, because any mistake could ruin the entire plan and cost them their lives. The soldiers grew scared and promised to follow the order. The girls thanked Harold, and Norman suggested going back inside since it was getting very cold outside. Kazura asked the butler to go alone, saying there was something important left to do. The butler did not argue and left quietly. Alone in the cool forest air, Kazura thought about how much he had managed to change in the way people saw him, even while playing someone else's role. Long ago, Harold caused their pain. He bumped into Clara while she was watering the flowers, fell, and then killed her, blaming her for everything. Everyone hated him. Now everything is different. He has saved 2 innocent women and given them a chance for a peaceful life. But this is just the beginning. Many more challenges lie ahead. Meanwhile, Norman walked home and thought about why Harold seemed so down. He wondered if he should have stayed with him but decided not to get involved. Suddenly, a sinister laugh from the young master caught his attention. The boy shouted loudly, saying he despised all people because he believed their lives had no meaning and only deserved anger. Kazura skillfully played the role of the mad young lord, acting out the scene of people being destroyed by magical fire. Norman watched in awe and tried to understand what had happened. Kazura realized he was just repeating memorized lines, acting like his character in a game. Everything needed to seem real to those around him. Kazura believed it was a good idea to send Norman ahead, since his mocking laugh and loud conversation with the absent Clara made him seem like a real man. Kazura felt surprised when he saw Norman again. Norman had not left the forest, so the young lord asked why the butler ignored his orders. Norman could not explain his actions and simply apologized. Kazura ordered Norman to forget everything he had seen. If Norman refused, Kazura said he would take the secret to his grave without telling anyone else. No other answers interested him. The butler was so frightened that he simply agreed and did not try to ask what was happening. Norman could not understand why the young lord wanted so much to hide his weakness and his wish to help others. The butler started to realize that the young master was just copying the bad behavior of his parents. Lacking the confidence to stand up to them, he tries to avoid any arguments. Harold might have known that serious trouble would follow, so he chooses to act like his parents and deceive everyone around him. The idea surprised Norman. He had not realized how hard it was for a young boy to live without sharing his feelings. Until now, he never noticed it, although he could have reached out and offered some help. In the end, Norman realized that compassion alone was not enough, so he decided he must help the young lord by using all his abilities and resources. The butler chose to stand by Harold until the sadness in this gentle boy's heart faded away from the cruelty around him and the harshness of his parents. Meanwhile, the cart carrying the girls moved away from the place where they had lived for many years, drawing closer to the borders of the Stokes land. Clara kept thinking about everything that was happening. The guards followed the young lord's orders and stayed silent about everything that happened. They explained how they carried out his instructions and hurried to get the horses and the cart ready. 2 guards and the coachman were told to quietly take the girls to the village of Blech and leave them there. After finishing this task, they would take the wagon to the city of Lyra. Kazura arranged a special permit in advance, so his people could travel freely through foreign lands. He also explained that the permit was needed to deliver a sword made by the blacksmith from Lyra. The guards did not understand why they had to spend money on a sword when their job was to buy a cheaper sword instead of an expensive blade, which should solve the issue. Clara held the gold coins in her hands and kept thinking about how unpredictable life could be. The coachman told her that the village of Blech was close by. The coachman suggested the women take a short rest, as they would likely reach their destination by sunrise. Clara thanked him for his concern and decided to enjoy the first sunrise of her new life. The sunrise looked beautiful. Clara enjoyed the first gentle rays of sunlight over the mountains, while the fresh, damp morning air brought hope for the future. Harold's parents were delighted with how their beloved son defeated the dreadful maid. Lord Hayden felt truly proud of him, and Lady Jessica praised his impressive magical skills. Kazura, perfectly acting as the sinister heir, calmly told his parents every detail of the murder and called it a simple task. Despite this, it was hard for him to understand how these fools could believe him without any suspicion. Kazura was surprised to see how Harold's parents truly admired their son for killing the maid. It was hard to imagine that such cruel people could even exist. Most importantly, they believed the lie, and now Clara and Colette were safe. Suddenly, Zen entered the room and asked what Harold was doing. Harold quickly told him to close the door and rudely said not to interfere in his business. Kazura wanted to get rid of the annoying boy, so he asked in a tone like Harold's why the boy had come. Zen tried to ease the conversation by reminding him of their night drive under the moon. Harold ordered silence because he clearly remembered what Zen was doing at that time and did not want others to find out. Keeping quiet was the only way to avoid trouble. Zen thought about this troubling possibility but pretended not to notice. He felt relieved that Harold at least did not send him away. Zen knew there was a big difference between them, but sometimes it seemed like Harold did not notice at all. Harold even remembered his name and talked to him. Kazura paused for a moment, almost forgetting his role in this fantasy world. Zen enjoyed being close to the Lord. Curiosity got the better of Zen, so he asked why someone as aristocratic as Harold was interested in transport and farming. Harold, true to his style, replied that he would rather cut open his stomach and plant a flower pot filled with cement inside. Zen politely declined the offer, but the gesture surprised him. The young lord truly cared for the plants. Some received water, some were given nutrients, while others were simply left alone. Harold demonstrated that plants fed with the potion of life grew the best. Zen had never seen anything like it before and was surprised by how well the fertilizer worked. The Lord noticed that plants watered with pure potion without dilution wilted quickly and did not produce fruit. Finding the right balance with water was necessary. Harold tossed Xena a few fruits and told her to eat them raw. He said that since she came on her own, she was responsible for what happened, even if something went wrong. Zen started eating soft fruits and was surprised to find they tasted much better than expected. Harold felt pleased with the outcome. This was not part of the game, and it is surprising that this farming method even worked. Now it was possible to use this advantage. In recent years, several natural disasters have struck the Stokes domain. Crop yields have fallen, taxes have increased, and many peasants are struggling with hunger, unable to feed their children. Without Norman, Kazura would have never learned about these problems. The Stokes family treated their subjects terribly, going beyond cruelty to something even worse. Survival mattered most to him. He cared more about avoiding death during a peasant uprising than about the fate of his character's parents. Harold told Xena to stop eating and bring the fruits to the cooks so they could check their quality and compare them with regular food. He also wanted to know how well the fruits would sell. The Lord then asked what Zen would say if someone asked about his task. Zen promised to keep everything secret. Zen quickly left the room, while Harold wondered why this young man had so much energy. Maybe he was just simple-minded and found joy in every order he received. Next, Harold decided to go outside and practice his sword skills, knowing that being able to handle a sword was an essential skill in this world. With steady energy, the sword moved in both hands, building strength and skill. Strength and skill will make it much easier to stay safe and move forward in the game's story. Over time, the young lord started to improve. Learning about the strengths of his new body caught his interest, since Harold, despite his bad reputation, was known as one of the strongest in battle. However, Kazura realized he was still far from reaching the level of his character. There is still time to improve both his magic and sword skills, and maybe even create his own version of the story. In a world of swords and magic, battles decide who survives. For Harold, this matters even more, because he faces duel after duel against many opponents, including entire groups of main heroes. Now, in a new body, Kazura focused on survival, determined to live through his story and overcome everyone in his way. Meanwhile, the world became covered by a strange magical mist that spread further, infecting lands and putting lives at risk. In a completely different place, a young woman remained calm after a long meditation and spoke about Harold from Stokes. Erica spoke with her father, who apologized for bothering her. She understood that everything he did was meant to save their people. As a daughter of the Sumaragi family, she knew it was her duty to protect them. The biggest worry was the spread of the miasma. Parts of the mountains were already infected, and new outbreaks among the people were becoming more common. If the infection spreads, the forests will be lost and people will not have enough resources. This was a sad reality, but sacrificing their daughter seemed the only way to protect the economy. The father explained his plan to his wife with real regret. Juno, the young assistant, wanted to show support to Erica, but Erica asked to be left alone. Erica realized she could not change anything, and worrying about herself made no difference. This was the only way she could help her people, accepting that when one flag falls, another remains, and a third is raised, became necessary. Meanwhile, the financial advisor met with Harold. Right away, Harold asked if the report on income and expenses was ready as he had requested. All the documents were in order. Still, Harold asked if there were any serious mistakes. The advisor assured him everything was fine. Harold wanted to avoid unnecessary problems. The family's financial situation was his main concern. Recent years had brought a steady decline. The main problem was that the parents spent all their money on jewelry and clothes. To make up for their losses, they raised taxes. This situation will not last long because people cannot handle it. Harold asked the advisor if he agreed with his conclusions. After a brief pause, the advisor carefully confirmed that this trend does exist. He also explained that some people are already forced to close their farms because of financial difficulties, and the number of newcomers from nomadic lands is increasing. All these problems will eventually lead to serious consequences. If things continue this way, the Stokes family will lose both their influence and financial stability. Harold only laughed coldly and called the advisor a scoundrel, saying that the downfall of the Stokes family was the best news he had heard. The advisor warned that if anyone overheard these words, the consequences could be serious. Agriculture will be hit the hardest, leading to a sharp drop in profits and eventually causing bankruptcy. This is why Harold invited advisor Jake. Jake worked as an inspector in the agricultural sector and understood the problems better than most. Jake admitted he was not completely sure about the purpose of the visit, but he was willing to listen to the offer. Harold signaled for him to look at the harvest results. Next, he asked Jake to try the fruit right away because he had grown it himself and wanted to check its quality. Jake hesitated, but Harold ordered him to eat right away or risk becoming fertilizer for the next harvest himself. The advisor realized there was no other choice and felt surprised that this so-called evil lord actually grew food. After tasting the fruit, Jake was amazed by its flavor. Zen immediately said that this was exactly as expected. Harold became upset because Zen was taking credit for growing the crop. Later, he explained that he grew everything himself by experimenting and using special fertilizers. This method really helps increase crop yields. Harold said he wanted to share this technique and needed advice from Jake. At first, Jake did not believe him and did not expect the Lord to ask for help. Harold explained that while the idea is expensive, it only needs the right management. Jake, with his strong knowledge of land, finances, and people, is the perfect fit for this role. The next step was to identify all key factors, prepare the necessary equipment, and calculate the costs needed to start the project. Jake agreed to take a closer look at the situation and try to make things better. Still, something troubled him. Harold quickly realized this and pointed out that Jake wanted to hear the whole truth. Harold pointed out that if Lord Hayden were in his place, he would be angry, and Jake might end up in jail. Everyone listening understood that a strong reaction from the father was completely expected. Harold suggested Jake consider the possible outcomes. If everything goes well, the results could be worth the effort. Zen tried to ask for more details, but the Lord interrupted and handed him a bottle of foul-smelling fertilizer, giving it a name. Harold explained that he developed a new method by feeding plants with a solution containing the elixir of life. The first step is to share this method with a few farmers so they can test it on their fields. The main goal is to improve the financial situation of the domain. In the first phase, volumes will be kept low, so any losses will be minor. This fertilizer will go to farmers who cannot manage large fields. Even if things go well, they will try to prevent economic inequality between farms. In the future, it may be possible to combine several farms. Since the Stokes family's potion supplies should be enough for this, the shelf life of these potions is almost over, so they need to be used soon, which helps save resources. The key benefit of this method is faster plant growth. Each type has its own unique taste and size, but the effect of quicker development is already noticeable. Normally, the crop is ready in 2 months, but with the life potion method, the first fruits appear in just a week or even 5 days at most. Advisor Jake was amazed. Growing food so quickly seemed unbelievable. Still, he warned that if this method became widely available, it could ruin farming in other areas. Harold knew this as well. News of his invention reaching nearby lands could lead to trouble because those places might lose millions. If the father, who cares a lot about money, found out, he might try to control everything. So it makes sense to start quietly and use only a small area for planting. Economic flexibility opens up the chance to try growing different crops. Noticing suspicious looks from the others, Harold suddenly called those present. Jake apologized and said he was just surprised. The plan looked very promising and had a good chance of working. Harold preferred to focus on coming up with ideas and left the execution to others. Still, he made it clear that if anyone noticed a problem, they should report it right away or offer advice. Jake wondered how someone so young could discover a groundbreaking way to grow food. It seemed like either a sign of true genius or unstoppable determination. Norman also noticed that the young lord is not interested in money or fame. He truly wants to help ordinary people. This is what shows his humanity. All these qualities made Harold a very strong leader. He asked Jake if he was ready to become his right-hand person in making this idea a reality. Right away, Harold made it clear that the help was not for him, but for ordinary people struggling to get by, those who are weak, defenseless, and unable to help themselves. During dinner with his father, Harold almost choked when Lord Hayden calmly announced that he had already arranged his son's marriage and that everything was settled. Lady Jessica smiled with joy while Harold asked who his bride would be. His father gave the name Erica, the daughter from the Sumaragi family. By joining with this family, their bloodline would become even more noble. In a few days, they planned to visit the Sumaragi estate to talk about the details, get to know each other better, and learn more about the family they would soon join. Harold had no choice but to follow the order. Still, thoughts about the future stayed with him, and memories of events he had already witnessed in the game came to mind. The Sumaragi family is one of the most respected lineages, present at the founding of the state and still closely connected to the royal dynasty. An alliance with them would bring even more prestige to the Stokes family, though it was clear that the Sumaragi were not thrilled about it. In reality, they are being forced to sacrifice their beloved daughter to save their finances. If the Stokes knew the whole truth, it would be a huge shock for them. These changes did not make Harold happy. Still, for a while, he could hand over all the farming matters to his advisor, Jake, and he trusted him completely. For a boy from modern Japan, acting and speaking so maturely felt unusual, but the story seemed to be moving in the right direction. Meanwhile, the lands of Sumaragi were already beginning to feel the effects of the miasma. Back in his room, the Stokes heir started reading an encyclopedia about healing herbs. Zen sat nearby, making sure not to disturb him. Harold realized that to survive and avoid suspicion from his parents, he needed to be careful. He also knew that Tasuki, the head of the Sumaragi family, was an influential and compassionate person. Gaining his support could make life much easier from now on. This way, he can help the main character Rainer while staying out of the spotlight. There was also a risk. The events could have strayed from the game's story. Still, Gaining a powerful ally like Itsuki turned out to be a very smart move. Meeting a future wife offers a great chance to build trust and get to know the Sumaragi family better, which creates many new opportunities. Meanwhile, Zen watched his master, wondering what he was working on, perhaps creating new giant fruits. The thought even crossed Zen's mind that he might be useful too. Still acting as a dissatisfied aristocrat, Harold asked why Zen was not working. Zen replied with pride that he was taking the day off. That answer did not help Zen. After a harsh blow, Zen was thrown out of the room. The next day, Harold went on with his tasks, getting ready for the upcoming journey. The journey was tiring and took a long time. When Harold woke up, he learned they were already approaching the Sumaragi family estate and needed to get ready for the meeting. A polite servant met them at the door and showed them inside, but asked them to take off their shoes. This was the Sumaragi family's way of showing respect for the house. Soon, Harold was invited into a room where Erica, his fiancée, was waiting. No happiness showed on her face, and that did not surprise him. In the story, she never treated Harold warmly. Careful words were needed in this conversation. According to the story, Erica felt disgust towards him and saw him as a repulsive aristocrat. Erica had a gentle soul and even felt sorry for the monsters she had to kill. She was always ready to support others. There was only one person she truly despised. Feeling responsible for her family's financial support, she stayed with Harold until the end, continuing her role as the family's protector. But if she adds common sense to her kindness and agrees to an engagement with Harold, who no longer follows a bad path, the story will change completely. But if that does not happen, she will stay by the main character Rainer's side, and then becomes an essential part of the team as an irreplaceable healer. Without her support, the challenges may be too difficult, and the team might not reach their main goal. Harold realized that even if he escaped all the dangers, the team would not be able to defeat the final boss, and the whole world would be lost. Allowing this to happen was not an option. He decided it was best to leave the worst impression of himself, even if he would later feel guilty about it. For the greater good, he had to hurt this girl's feelings. At the beginning of the conversation, the head of the Sumaragi family introduced himself, politely mentioned his wife Komi, and their beloved daughter Erica. In contrast, the women remained reserved. Harold introduced himself and thanked them for the invitation. Even he noticed how polite and friendly his words sounded, which felt unusual for the part he was supposed to play. Harold's father immediately asked Erica if she liked his son, since he had personally raised him. Erica smiled and replied that she found the young man likable. Harold quickly noticed there was no life in her eyes. She tried hard to hide the lie. Now he just needed to make her show her real feelings. After the introduction, Komi suggested that the man leave the young couple alone so they could get to know each other better. Lord Hayden agreed with the idea, and Harold decided to take the opportunity. Erica was supposed to give him a short tour and then return for dinner. The girl politely invited him to take a walk with her, and Harold thanked her for the honor and agreed, happy to accept, though it was only a step in his plan. Outside, an excited Erica introduced herself to her soon-to-be husband, saying her full name. Harold did the same. Erica pointed to a large tree and explained that it was a cherry blossom, a symbol of the Sumaragi family for many generations. According to her, this plant does not grow here naturally, but 500 years ago the first ruler brought seedlings from distant lands and started new life in this place. Harold noticed that the tree really looked different from the cherry blossoms he had seen before. Erica was surprised, since she didn't expect him to have seen them at all. He quickly explained that what he saw was something similar, but definitely not a cherry blossom. Trying to seem indifferent, Harold said he did not care. Deep down, he was impressed by how polite and genuine the girl was in talking to him. Erica decided that he only cared about her title and family background. This was exactly what Harold wanted, for her to end up hating him. So he told her he saw nothing noble in her family. Harold added that his family is much more honorable because they do not lower themselves by asking others for help to save their finances. Erica felt angry because she did not expect such a harsh insult. Harold realized he might have gone too far and now risked ruining the plan. The young lord told the girl to be quiet and give the letter to her father once he returned. Erica could not hold back her feelings any longer and refused to do what he asked. Harold laughed and suggested that if she wanted her people to die in terrible pain, she should go without looking back, caring only about her own pride. These words made Erica pause. Curiosity grew in her about what rescue method for her people was hidden in the letter. But Harold, keeping up his act as a villain, told her she would find out only after the opening. Besides, she had nothing to lose. Eventually, Erica took the letter but admitted it did not mean she trusted him. Harold suggested not to take his word for it, saying she would see for herself when everything became clear. After the meeting, Harold returned home and was greeted by the butler, Norman. The elderly man politely offered the young lord a chance to rest after his tiring journey. However, Harold turned down the offer to rest and immediately asked about the progress of his agricultural technology. At that moment, the maid Flora could not hold back and pleaded for mercy for Kellett, saying the girl was innocent. Norman said everything is going well so far. Farmers have received all the explanations, the fields are prepared, and the test of the method can begin in about 10 days. Harold felt pleased and asked Norman to keep listening to Jake's reports and regularly update him about how things were going. Most importantly, Harold wanted everything kept completely secret. Norman promised to do everything properly. The old butler knew how to work quietly and perfectly in the background. The parents noticed nothing, so the plan moved forward smoothly. Harold also wanted to know how things were going in the Sumaragi family. He was sure that Erica, seeing how much people suffered because of the miasma, would not miss a chance to help and would give the letter to her father. That letter included a simple recipe for an antibiotic and an estimate of the infected areas based on a map. Naturally, this did not solve the entire epidemic problem. The real goal was different: to gradually encourage Erica to join the team of heroes so they could face the threat together. Harold was unsure if Tasuki would trust a letter from an unknown 10-year-old boy or decide to prepare the medicine based on his advice. Still, once the medicine starts working, the head of the Sumaragi family will remember this letter. This memory could help save lives. For now, it is enough that Erica took the letter. Most likely, she will give it to her father. This alone marks a good start to a new story. A few days later, during training with Zen, Harold kept insulting him and calling him a fool who could not fight back. Zen was too afraid to hit the Lord and did not have the strength to stand up to him. Anger built up in Harold. If the opponent would not even try to fight, then he needed to feel Harold's real strength. Let him get up and struggle for his life. Still, it was clear that Zen was not fit for a real battle. After a few minutes, Harold won easily. He realized that soldiers could not be good trainers because they were too afraid of hurting the heir and making his father angry. Harold considered asking his father to invite a master from another region. Still, he had doubts because his father might not want to put him at risk. An experienced swordsman would not hold back, even during training. At that moment, a servant announced the arrival of a guest. Harold felt surprised since he was not expecting anyone, and immediately wanted to find out who it was. The surprise grew when Itsuki Sumaragi appeared as the guest. The reason for her visit after their last conversation remained unclear to him. Harold grew angry at the sudden arrival. The timing was bad because the field tests were about to begin and he needed to stay focused. He made himself calm down. Maybe she came to give a reply to the letter. But if that was true, it was unclear why she would come in person. Still, turning down the invitation was not an option. So, Harold invited Erica for a conversation. While they had tea, Harold tried to figure out what this mysterious girl really wanted. Holding back his emotions, he wanted to find out why she had appeared as soon as possible. He needed to get all the answers right here and now. Harold said he didn't have as much free time as she did, and told her she should appreciate his attention. Erica apologized for showing up unexpectedly. After sending the maid away, the young lord firmly reminded the girl not to waste his time and to explain the reason for her visit right away. By doing this quickly, everyone would be satisfied. Erica bowed and thanked them on behalf of her whole family, saying that the medicine recipe had helped them save many people. Harold felt satisfied because Tasuka really did create an effective antibiotic, and it worked even faster than they expected. He commented with satisfaction that the Sumaragi family must be truly desperate if they cling to any chance they get. Erica did not argue and agreed. The Lord immediately added that this advice is only for now. Medicine does not solve the main problem and can cause side effects if used for a long time. Surprised, Erica asked again if the medicine really does not cure the disease completely. Her father had no idea about this. Harold explained that the drug could only help in the early stages. In severe cases, it is just a prototype. He never planned to save those in a desperate state. The young woman clearly understood that their partnership was for political reasons. Money and resources were traded for status. Still, she did not know when Harold had created the medicine. Was this about getting engaged, or had something like this happened before? Erica struggled to put the pieces together and felt lost in her thoughts. As the girl was thinking, Harold started to get impatient. She noticed and said she had another letter from her father. The Lord quickly took it from her hands. His suspicions were correct. Erica was just a messenger. Tasuka thought sending his daughter would be more respectful. The letter thanked him for his help and included the recipe. The letter shows that the head of the family is truly grateful for saving people and hopes this event will strengthen their mutual trust. Tasuka reported that no side effects have been found so far, but patients who will use the medicine for a long time will be monitored carefully. Harold felt surprised by how detailed the report was. Tasuka had explained everything he wanted to say in detail. Then there was a second page, and on it Harold found an unexpected part of the letter. In it, the head of the Sumaragi family described the difficult situation at the estate and asked Harold to listen to his request, which was of great importance. He asked for permission for Erica to stay at the Stokes estate and explained that with the current situation he had no other choice. As a father, he wanted only the best for his daughter. The news left Harold stunned. Erica quickly saw his reaction and realized that being there was making him very uncomfortable. It turned out that the girl had already sent the carriage away, so she had nowhere to return. This made Harold so angry that he could barely control himself. After collecting himself, he recognized the courage of his future wife. Erica simply laughed and thanked him for understanding, knowing she had put him in a very awkward situation. Harold lost his temper and shouted that he would not accept such bold demands. Erica calmly reminded him of the many people he had saved and said she did not understand why he was acting so distant toward her now. The Lord said he had already received a generous reward for his help. He didn't expect that this reward would end up sitting at the same table with him. Erica agreed, as she hadn't planned this herself. But her father made a different decision. Erica stood up from the table, apologized for taking up his time, and promised not to bother Harold again with her requests. Her attitude surprised the boy, as he had never seen someone act this way before. She quickly left the estate, apologizing again as she said goodbye. Harold felt confused. He had only shared his frustration, but she simply walked away. As the young lord reflected on everything that had happened, an uneasy feeling crept over him. It became clear that he now faced a choice that would shape the course of history. To stay safe, the decision was made to go to his father. Someone might have overheard the conversation with Erica, and that could have serious consequences. Just a few hours after the girl left, Harold was already sitting in his father's office. He learned that Lord Hayden had also received a letter from Tasuki, and that Erica would now be living in their home. Harold did not agree because it seemed suspicious. Still, his father smiled happily and explained that the families had already arranged the alliance, so there was nothing to worry about. Lord Hayden explained that Erica is already on her way to the East Gate, and Harold should get into the carriage right away to greet her with full honors. At this moment, Harold realized the trip back would take a week. This meant Erica had prepared everything in advance, expecting he would probably say no. Meanwhile, his father just did what she asked without much thought. Harold began to suspect she might have arrived as a spy or with some other secret purpose. The worst part is that none of this happened in the original game story. Everything changed because of the letter with the medicine recipe. Now, he needs to watch Erica's actions closely. When they met, the girl acted like everything was normal and thanked him sincerely for his help. Harold replied coolly, told her to stop pretending, and asked who had arrived with her. Erica is accompanied by a young woman named Juno, who has cared for her since childhood. Smiling, Juno also thanked Harold for welcoming them. This only made him more annoyed. Dealing with Erica was already more than enough, and now there was this situation too. On top of that, Juno was not even part of the original game storyline. This meant the story was taking a new turn, and new characters were joining in. Harold chose to keep his distance from them, hoping this would keep him safer. He made it clear that he did not have much time and would not take care of them. They could stay as long as they wanted, as long as they did not get in the way. Both girls thanked him again and promised not to bother him. Lord Gaydon was delighted. He was already thinking about his son's wedding and wanted to give the girls the best possible place to live. He even warned the servants they could be sent to jail if they did not treat the guests well. Harold was stunned. He wanted to confront his father, but only allowed himself to think about it. Meanwhile, his father kept talking and suggested that Harold show the girl around the city. According to him, a true gentleman should know how to accompany a lady. Erica smiled, accepted the offer, and thanked him for a wonderful tour. She asked Harold to take care of her as if there had never been any conflict between them. Only now did he realize that he never truly had a choice from the very beginning. At that time in the Sumaragi estate, the head of the family read a letter from Harold. The message seemed suspicious, as the young man spoke too openly about serious matters, as if he did not fear any consequences. Tasuka realized that even if the letter was telling the truth, it would not help the Stokes family. Instead, it subtly hinted at the decline of their family. Curry doubted that an ordinary boy could be the author. It seemed possible that someone else was acting behind the scenes. If that was true, Harold was just a pawn chosen to deliver the message. It is important to find out who really wrote the letter and why they chose such a roundabout way. If the purpose is to help Sumaragi, then it could also be a trap set for the Stokes. Perhaps this person holds influence, is close to the Stokes family, and simply controls Harold. Another possibility is that this individual manipulates everyone at the same time, pursuing their own goals. Everything suggested that Harold was completely under someone else's control. Still, there was a chance this was a clever provocation, a way to test the strength of their family. The risk was too high. One mistake could have erased the Sumaragi from history without any outside help. The person who wrote the letter understood this. In the end, they agreed that the letter's author did not wish them harm. So, most likely, everything written in the letter is true and should be quietly accepted. Tasuka told Carrie to prepare everything needed. Medicine should only be given with the patient's agreement and after clearly explaining all the risks and consequences. Meanwhile, a formal dinner was taking place at the Stokes estate. Lord Hayden treated his guests to dishes made from the finest ingredients, all carefully grown on their own land. Erica and Juno acted like perfect guests, always smiling and saying thank you so no one would suspect them. Harold watched their every move, trying to figure out what they were really after. Lady Jessica noticed her son's sadness and quickly grew concerned. Harold simply replied in a flat voice that he was fine. Jessica acted tough but cared deeply as a mother. She even wanted to make sure he was not sick. The boy, however, irritably asked her not to embarrass him in front of the guests. The parents laughed and apologized for treating him like a child, saying that Harold had always been shy. The Lord wasn't thinking about his reputation. His parents looked even worse than he did because they tried too hard to seem kind in front of the guests. Erica noticed this very clearly. Disdain was clear in her eyes. Still, she and Juno stayed silent, while Harold quietly cursed everything around him and wished he could just finish his meal and leave the table. Later, Erica talked with Juno about the groom's behavior. Harold was truly rude and difficult, but she remembered her father's words. Perhaps someone had deliberately made him seem this way. At first glance, Harold did not seem like someone who cared about other people's opinions, but Juno reminded him that Erica had tried to test him and failed. The girl admitted that it did not matter if Harold was lying or telling the truth. Until they uncovered his real intentions, the threat to their family would remain. Juno agreed because that was the reason they came here. The Stokes estate is filled with deception and cold cruelty. Both understood this. Erica asked her friend to be careful. Juno, an experienced agent, assured her that uncovering secrets was a familiar task for her. Juno understood everything well. Doing nothing would be pointless. If Harold was only pretending, the real puppet master had to be found. That is why Tasuka sent Erica as bait for daytime walks. The real tool, however, was Juno. While Harold's father stayed busy with work and his mother paid him no attention, It was Juno's moment to act. Still, Juno knew all this effort might be useless. The enemy had not revealed themselves yet. Even if the puppet was destroyed, it would not help. The young lord's actions only added to the suspicions. There was a chance Harold had lost control over himself and that someone else was influencing his mind. Tasuka suspected this might be true. Only time, careful observation, and a discreet investigation within the Stokes family will confirm it. If the truth comes out, Juno will need to use every skill to reveal the person pulling the strings. The next day brought an important lesson. In the Stokes household, if something bothers you, you have to put up with it or face punishment. Ordinary people mean nothing here. People pay huge taxes and go hungry while the Stokes focus only on weapons and the army. There is no way to escape this tyranny. Juno tried to talk to the locals, but most of them were too scared to say a word. She just wanted to hear some rumors to get a better idea of what was really going on. It became clear that people suspect the Lord's son is involved in something bad. They are too afraid to even mention his name because his father is known for being very cruel. Some people shared helpful information carefully. Slowly, a clearer picture began to form in front of her. Most of it is just rumors, but there is always some truth hidden in them. This is where an experienced agent shows strength by separating lies from facts and finding what is real. Meanwhile, Harold and Erica took a tour around the city. As soon as residents noticed Lord Stokes, they quickly disappeared into their homes and quietly talked among themselves. The streets were getting empty and shops were closing. Erica felt disgusted because this walk brought her no joy. Harold did not know much about the city since it was barely mentioned in the game, so he asked Norman ahead of time to talk about the most interesting places. Eventually, they found a shop that was still open. Harold firmly told the shopkeeper to give something to Erica without charging her. The merchant, shaking with fear, obeyed immediately. Erica felt surprised by his reaction, but still thanked him for the gift. Harold noticed her reaction and realized that his reputation truly scared people. The rumors about Clara's violent death had worked too well. Now he was even more hated than his father. But the most important thing was to keep Clara and Colette safe. Their relatives must not suspect anything. After a difficult visit, Harold tiredly said the walk was over and it was time to go back. Erica, not impressed by what she had seen, agreed without any trouble. After his walk, Harold met with Jake to check on the farm. Everything was going well, and they expected a harvest from 6 fields. After thinking it over, Harold decided to expand production since stopping now would be a mistake. Jake pointed out that they did not have enough workers. Even if Harold started digging himself, it would not help. Norman also warned that prices might drop. Harold agreed, but wondered if staff from the estate could help since there were plenty of servants there. Norman suggested involving Max and his team, who had already made mistakes at work. This approach could help solve the delicate issue. However, Harold disagreed, saying it would not be right to remove soldiers from their posts and take them into remote places. Hiring outsiders from other regions might be a better solution. Norman was surprised, but Harold felt sure he could convince his father. The main thing was keeping the new workers. Jake agreed and said he would finish everything that needed to be done. He reported that no soil depletion was found, and they have already harvested 7 red, 6 deep purple, and 11 blue-tinted vegetables. The cooks who used the harvest did not notice any difference in taste. Harold felt relieved, but told Jake to keep monitoring. Meanwhile, Juno returned to the room and asked Erica why she came back so quickly, noting that the city is large and they could have spent the whole day exploring. Erica said she knew people disliked the Stokes family, but she never realized how bad it was. The frightened faces of the servants made it clear. Bitterness filled her as she realized she was marrying into such a terrible family. Juno, after gathering rumors, also understood that the Stokes were far from noble. Erica trusted Juno's abilities, but explained that as soon as one secret is uncovered, 10 more appear, making everything seem suspicious. The family hides secrets so serious that Juno felt uncomfortable sharing them all, worried it might disturb Erica. In the end, she gathered her courage and learned the terrible story. Harold had personally ordered the maid and her family to be burned. In that terrible situation, a woman and her 9-year-old daughter lost their lives. Erica felt shocked and refused to believe it, thinking it might just be a rumor. However, Juno insisted that this story was confirmed not only by gossipers, but also by servants who personally knew the victim. Erica could not understand how this was possible. Despite being rude, Harold tried to help people and even gave them a recipe for medicine. Maybe he was different from his parents. Juno promised to keep an eye on Harold and warned Eric not to stay alone with him. The girl trembled, but the agent assured her of protection. Juno felt sure of herself and promised that everything would work out. She did not know that Harold was trying to help ordinary people survive hunger or who he truly was. The maids noticed Miss Erica acting strangely. After her walk with Harold, she stayed in her room for 2 weeks and did not want to see anyone. Meanwhile, Harold kept practicing with his sword in a quiet spot, far from where people said he had burned Clara. He wanted to avoid drawing attention. The young heir of the Stokes family worked hard to improve his skills in fencing and magic, preparing himself to defend in real battles. Constant progress allowed him to combine lightning strikes with sword attacks, creating a powerful and deadly tactic against any enemy. Fast spells combined with sharp strikes made him more confident. He could cut down even thick trees with a single blow. This was a big improvement over the poor early training, but Harold knew it was still not enough. Even after learning all the basic techniques, there was still a long way to go before reaching the level of the original Harold, so stopping was not an option. Only by reaching the level of a true herald can he protect himself and use his full strength in this harsh world. Nearby, Juno watched him during his training. The young lord showed impressive skill with both sword and magic, making his abilities stand out. Juno was not sure if the boy was dangerous, but she wanted to talk to him herself. At the moment, though, something else was on her mind. Seeing how strong Harold was, she kept quiet, afraid that saying anything might make him angry and unsure if she would be safe after that. Counting on her talent for disappearing into the shadows, she knew she could slip away unnoticed if anything went wrong. Suddenly, the sword hit the tree where she was hiding. Stepping on a dry branch, Juno made a sound and gave herself away. Harold ordered her to come out at once, and she thought her time was up. The first thought was to run, but fear held her back, and she doubted she could escape in this situation. It seemed clear Harold had watched her every move from the very start. Only 10 years old, yet his abilities were remarkable. There was no doubt. As soon as she lost focus, he quickly figured out where she was and threw his sword. The tree saved her life. Without it, she would be dead. What really happened was just an accident. The sword slipped from his hands during another lunge. Harold had no idea who was hiding in the bushes and was just as scared as she was. Harold realized he was tired from the training, but his expression looked determined. In reality, his fear quickly turned into a calm focus. Confusion filled him as he saw Juno there. The girl started apologizing for following him, and the situation raised many questions. Eventually, Harold pretended to see it as simple curiosity, like a child playing with a sword, and told himself it was good that nothing bad happened. Maintaining his strict aristocratic demeanor, Harold firmly reminded Juno to stay where she was, warning that next time she might lose her life immediately. Juno gave a convincing performance as a guilty and frightened girl who seemed truly sorry for her mistake, even though she was secretly relieved that everything turned out fine. She clearly understood the warning. There would be no second chance. Still, gratitude filled her because he chose not to kill her right then and there. The agent never expected the boy to discover her so easily. Now she could only feel grateful for the sturdy tree that blocked the sword. Now uncertainty filled her mind about how to protect Erica. Harold was much better at staying hidden, and in a real fight, there was no chance of winning. In front of her stood not only a skilled swordsman, but also a very intelligent person. Juno had to admit that competing was pointless. Switching the subject, Harold asked how Erica was feeling. Juno explained that Erica was tired from the trip and was still getting used to the new surroundings. Harold pretended to care, but quickly suggested the guests leave if they felt so uncomfortable in his mansion. Juno pointed out his lack of warmth toward his fiancée and suggested he try to find some kindness in his heart. He would lose nothing by it and might even discover something new. Although aware his words were harsh, Harold could not hold back and called her a naive fool. He admitted afterward that he did not want to marry Erica at all. Juno pretended to be surprised and asked him to explain what he really planned. At that moment, Harold realized he had said too much. He could not let anyone find out about the plans to break off the engagement, so he ended the conversation quickly, pretending he had somewhere to go. Still, Erica's condition was troubling. In the original game, she was not sick or this downhearted. It seemed the game world had changed. This could be part of a new storyline that might even end with Erica's death. Such an event was never planned in the original plot. The girl felt very unwell. She stayed silent, avoided talking, did nothing, and just stared quietly at the sky. Back at the estate, Harold remembered he had left his sword in the forest. He hurried back because the valuable blade meant too much to leave behind. Then something unexpected happened. Eric saw her at night, alone. This surprised him because he wondered why she was there by herself at such a late hour. The girl did not expect to see anyone and became confused. Harold remembered her poor health and realized that breathing in the cold night air without warm clothes could be very dangerous for her. Still acting like the angry groom, he could not offer help openly. All he could do was silently walk her to the room. In the room, Harold suddenly asked why Erica was out at night. He called her foolish and said she was to blame for making her illness worse. Then he ordered her to return to her quarters immediately. The girl's silence made him even angrier. He insisted on getting an answer because he believed it was disrespectful to ignore someone who is speaking to you. For Eric, it was easy to understand. After constant insults and rude behavior, any wish to talk just faded away. In the end, Harold called a maid to escort the bride. Pretending not to care, he added that it didn't matter to him. If she wanted, she could even freeze outside. Erica stopped him with an important question. Harold showed his annoyance and told her to hurry because there was no time. Taking a deep breath, Erica admitted she had heard rumors that Harold set the servant on fire himself. She wanted to hear the truth directly from him. At that moment, the boy realized that this rumor was what pushed Erica to her breaking point. He began to think about how to explain everything. After a brief pause, he said it was not true. At that moment, hope returned to the girl's face, as if a ray of light had eased the darkness inside her. Yet in the very next sentence, Harold puts on his harsh demeanor again, saying that not only the maid but also her daughter died in the fire, and he considers this his own accomplishment. Erica felt shocked as she tried to understand how someone could do something so cruel, but Harold replied coldly that these women were worthless. To him, ordinary people are nothing more than talking animals. Killing them is just a matter of choice. Erica could not stand it any longer and asked him to be quiet. He kept up the act, saying the dead should be grateful. They died together, and that was a kind of mercy. These creatures exist only to serve true aristocrats by cleaning, cooking, and obeying. Burning with anger, Erica gathered her remaining strength and slapped him hard, this cruel man who saw no value in human life. Her only hope quickly turned into anger. Tears ran down her face as she shouted that Harold was the worst person she had ever met. The aristocratic boa acted as if he did not care and even thanked them for the good idea. Erica once again felt the coldness of the world around her. At that moment, Harold actually wanted to tell the truth. The sting from the slap made him pause and think. Lying and causing pain have become necessary for him to protect others. Back in the room, Harold felt down and at first did not notice the lively Zen, who as usual wanted to play and kept asking questions. Even this mischievous boy noticed his sadness and offered to help. Harold waved him off, saying he was just tired and asked to be left alone. Zen did not want to leave, but the boy, as usual, forced him out of the room with harsh words and insults. The boy did not understand what was happening, but he could tell the young master was struggling. Harold found himself alone with his pain and the sense of failure. In his thoughts, Harold, a man from another world forced to act as a harsh aristocrat, could not see any of this as a reward. This reality weighed heavily on him. He realized he had hurt Erica on purpose, hoping she would distance herself, but his words were so harsh that she could not take it. However, Harold told himself that he could not afford to be weak. Forming attachments was not for him in this world. His place was to stay ruthless. Oversleeping for half the day brought no rest because the pain from yesterday still lingered. If still a player, he would simply replay the scene a few times, but now, this was no longer a game, and no explanations were possible. Eventually, hunger forced him to get up and go to the kitchen, though the pain in his stomach felt small compared to the weight on his mind. In the dining room, the butler Norman waited for him and, looking worried, asked how he was feeling and suggested that sleeping so long might be because of being very tired. Harold said everything was fine and shifted the conversation to business matters, mentioning the shortage of workers and the importance of keeping things confidential. Norman remembered the talk about bringing in mercenaries from other estates, but only if they could be trusted completely. This was exactly what Harold wanted to confirm. The young man came up with an unusual idea to give the rights to his special food-growing method to a trading guild and earn money from its sales. The butler was surprised by the sudden change of plan, but Harold insisted that his words should be taken seriously. The plan seemed simple. Sell the method, let the guild implement it, and then receive a share without any extra trouble. The biggest challenge is finding an honest guild that will not betray you or switch to serving another feudal lord. Norman agreed that most organizations like these are clever and greedy. However, Harold insisted because it was his idea, and he wanted to talk everything over with both Norman and Jake. Norman made it clear right away that there are not enough connections in this area. The Stokes family is respected, but their influence is not strong enough to affect the major guilds. Harold admitted that the servant was right and agreed that only his parents could help, but he could not reveal his plans to them. Despite the challenges, the stewards admired the young master's intelligence. The plan was smart. Let the merchants do all the work and simply collect the profits. Harold calmly pointed out that an idea is useless if it cannot be put into practice. The best option is to explain everything to Jake and see if he can suggest a solution. Meanwhile, the rooms were empty. Jake knocked, then entered and felt disappointed to find that Harold was not there. Assuming he was probably training again, he walked through the halls and suddenly noticed Lady Erica, someone he had only seen a few times before. Zen greeted Lady Erica warmly and mentioned that everyone here knows him, then asked where her companion Juno was. Erica politely replied that Juno had gone to the city on business. The young man took his time saying goodbye and mentioned that looking for Harold was pointless since he was not in his room and could have gone anywhere. Zen shared his concern that Harold has been too busy lately, which could wear him out. Hearing such care from someone so simple surprised Erica. Later, a gentle mention was made of Lady Erica herself, as the traces of that night, which had changed her, still lingered on her despite efforts to stay composed. He offered to help, saying he knew everything about the estate and could talk about any topic. Erica admitted that she felt troubled by the idea of Harold killing the maids with magic without any sense of regret. Zen immediately dismissed these as silly rumors. The family's dark reputation makes people invent scary stories. He did not believe any of it himself and suggested Erica not worry either. Calmly, the young woman explained that she had heard these words directly from Harold. The murdered maid had probably been known to Zen as well since she worked in this mansion. Erica said with sadness that after this, it is hard for her to imagine being close to someone so cruel. Harold was called a monster, and forgiveness for the death of an innocent person was not possible for him. Even though she is his fiancée and hopes to save her people through this marriage, forgetting what she has seen is almost impossible. Accepting it is even harder. Erica cried and kept saying that no goal could justify marrying Harold. Right now, this is all she can think about. After a while, the girl calmed down and apologized to Zen for being so emotional. She left, and Zen realized with regret how deeply this girl was caught up in her illusions. Harold was nothing like she imagined. The young aristocrat became a killer only to save a woman and a child. Erica wanted to sacrifice herself for her country, but she did not know the real truth. These two have a lot in common. It would be a real mistake if they went their separate ways because of an unfortunate misunderstanding. To Zen, all this felt like a tragedy that should never have happened. These two people are capable of kindness, and they belong together. Despite the rules, Zen made up his mind to act. He invited Erica to join him at a special place. Zen knew he was breaking the order but felt he had no other choice. Fear of Harold's anger weighed on Zen, but watching his friend's spirit break apart was even worse. Zen knew he had to take action. This was a turning point. Backing away from this ray of light, which could melt the cold inside, would bring lifelong regret. He knew he could never forgive himself if he did not try to save Harold and help this girl see the good in him. Even though Zen thought of himself as not very smart or clumsy, He decided to take a chance, knowing he might never speak with Harold again. He truly believed Harold was the best choice for Lady Erica. So, he asked for a chance. The girl noticed determination in his eyes and agreed. A few minutes passed, and they reached Harold's rooms. Erica did not understand why they had come here, especially since they entered without permission. With no way to turn back, Zen quietly asked her to stay silent, explaining that Harold would arrive soon, and it was best if no one knew she was there. Zane quickly hid Lady Erica in the room, just in time as Harold walked in. Harold looked surprised to see Zane, while Zane slipped into his usual act of playing the fool that everyone expected. When Mr. Harold spoke angrily, he explained that he was just worried and wanted to make sure everything was all right. Still, Harold called him a fool because entering someone else's room without permission is unacceptable. Meanwhile, hidden in the closet, Erica felt overwhelmed by shame and fear. Agreeing to this risky adventure with a stranger now left her trapped in a situation she did not understand. Then Zen announced that he was not there without a reason but had something important to report. Harold, growing impatient, told him to get to the point and not waste any time. Gathering his thoughts, he started to share the rumors spreading about Clara. Local traders want details, and Harold's reputation is now at risk. People tend to exaggerate, turning the night of the tragedy into new stories. Zen tried to stay quiet, but rumors spread quickly like weeds. Gerald did not care about what the common people thought. He again called Zen a talker who wastes time on imaginary problems. However, Zen was not so easy to fool, and finally made Harold confess that Clara and her daughter were alive and hidden in a distant village. Erica, still hiding, felt moved by these words. Now she understood why Zen had brought her here. Meanwhile, the boy kept apologizing sincerely. Harold explained that if the parents found out about his lie, Clara and the child would be in danger, so everyone needed to believe he was a ruthless killer. Zen took the chance to remember how much these rumors affected Erica. But Harold decided not to reveal the truth. Zen could not understand why the man kept silent in front of someone who truly wanted to trust him. Yet Harold remembered that revealing the truth might change the course of the game and end in death. Even though good intentions had helped Zen in the past, this time they could have led to disaster. He could not reveal the truth. That's why Harold decided to come up with a convincing excuse, so Zen would never mention it to Erica again. He thought that maybe the girl's tears had nothing to do with him. Perhaps she simply felt sorry for the women who had died. Even if they are connected, it does not matter. She is still a naive fool who does not understand anything about life. Harold called Erica kind, but her kindness came from weakness and changed nothing. If someone like her stayed by his side, only suffering would follow. Zen started to realize what the master was thinking and guessed that Harold was just trying to look after Erica. However, the young aristocrat replied sharply, saying he only cared about himself and had no intention of marrying a girl who was always crying. Still, Zen did not expect to hear such dislike for the bride, and asked how this could be, since the parents insisted on this marriage. Harold just laughed and explained that even someone like Zen should realize this engagement is only a game, driven by the desire for money and power. He explained that a few years ago the Sumaragi family fell into decline because of the miasma, a disaster that shook the entire continent. None of the feudal lords helped Erica's father, only his own father saw it as a chance to strengthen their family line. Even then, he did not fully understand the problem and only agreed to the engagement. Breaking it off would have meant disaster for Sumaragi, but Harold reassured everyone that he had already planned for this. The young man remembered a time during a visit to their area when he asked Erica to give a letter to her father. The letter contained important information that Tasuka might be able to use. At first, Zeno was blamed for being too curious, but the truth still came out. The letter explained ways to protect against the illness and warned about how far the infection might spread. If the infection stays small, Erica's father will restore the forest and bring people back. In the future, Harold will also share his unique way of growing food. This method has not been tested yet, so in the letter he only hinted at its potential. As for the engagement, he immediately suggested ending it. With the help of new medicine and modern farming, the Sumaragi family will get through this difficult time. Once the forests recover, support from outside will no longer be necessary. Tasuka will understand this, so convincing him should be easy. No one will get hurt and everyone will be happy, except maybe Lord Hayden. Zen thanked him for his honesty and admitted he had no idea everything was planned so cleverly. For the first time, Harold felt a bit calmer and was surprised by the boy's quick thinking. A clear warning was given. If Zen ever made a mistake, there would be serious consequences. Zen pretended not to understand, but Harold called him over. In a quiet voice, he said it was time to find a new master because the Stokes family would soon be gone. If this happened, Zen could end up a poor beggar. These words came as a surprise. Zen truly believed that with the help of the magic farm, Harold was trying to save the family. He explained that delaying the collapse for a little while is possible, but saving the situation completely is not. Taxes and wasteful spending are pushing everything toward disaster. Handling everything alone has become exhausting for him. Even though he does not want to see the fall of the cruel family, he has no idea what will happen to the ordinary people living on their lands. One thing is certain for him. The Sumaragi family will be all right. At this point, Zen became completely confused and could not see any connection to Erica. Once again, the owner called him a fool. Harold explained that, in the same letter, he had asked Erica's father to shelter all the refugees in case the Stokes family lost power. Ordinary people often need help, or they will not survive. Erica's kind father was expected to show compassion and take care of those in need. Despite this, Harold admitted there was a small chance Tasuka could turn out to be untrustworthy and might not listen. Still, this seemed unlikely since Tasuka was so much like her. Harold looked at Zen with contempt and said that Zen had put him in a difficult position because he knew too much. Fear settled over Zen, and he quickly promised to never tell anyone about this conversation. Meanwhile, hidden in the wardrobe, Erica tried to make sense of what she had just heard. Everything she knew was suddenly turned upside down. After the conversation ended, Harold told Zen to leave right away, and Zen, pretending not to understand, agreed without arguing. Before leaving, Zen suddenly suggested to the host that they have a fencing practice together. This really surprised Harold because he was not a good opponent. With enthusiasm, Zen shared his admiration for fencing and mentioned his long-time dream of witnessing Mr. Harold's legendary technique. The boy started to beg for permission to join them so he could watch the incredible sword moves. Harold remembered when Juno once followed him and suspected that Zen had the same idea. Then a thought came to him about practicing a bit while also seeing if he could push this talkative fool to a new level. Harold accepted the offer and thanked them, since he was looking for someone to test his new technique on. Zen seemed like the perfect choice. At first, the young man did not understand what the master was planning, especially when he appeared with 2 swords. Zen thought he was about to see a fighting style using 2 blades. Harold was ready to let out all his anger and show what happens when someone gets too curious. He told Zen to run faster if he wanted to stay alive. The young man felt awkward standing up to the owner, but he had chosen this path and could only accept it. As the door slammed shut, Erica decided it was time to leave her hiding place. Careful steps carried her across the creaking floor as she left the dusty closet, doing her best to stay quiet. The words she overheard stayed in her mind, showing Harold as a completely different person. The most important thing Erica learned was that the maid Clara and her daughter Colette are alive and safe in a distant village. She rushed to her room to tell Juno everything right away. Her father's agent needed to know the truth to avoid making a serious mistake. Catching her breath, Erica explained that their mission was to find out everything connected to Clara. She described in detail how Harold carefully built the reputation of a ruthless killer to protect the maid and her daughter from his family's revenge. The young man feared how his parents would react. If they learned the truth, they would find Clara and kill her, and they would consider Harold a traitor. Erica also remembered how Harold offered to help her father restore their family lands, so the Sumaragi family would no longer have to rely on others. The news left Juno shocked. The information seemed convincing, especially about the medicine, and Erica wanted to make sure Harold was telling the truth. It was hard to see how anyone could develop new medicine in just a few days, especially since this illness was unknown and barely studied. Juno wondered if Erica was suggesting that this young man had the ability to foresee the future. After all, how else could he have predicted the Sumaragi family crisis before it happened? Erica admitted there was a lot that was unclear about this story, but the main fact remained. Harold managed to create an effective medicine that saves lives. Juno remembered how impressive Harold's skills were during fencing practice and wondered how he missed Erica hiding in his room. A young man as calculating as him likely knew she was there. He may have wanted her to hear everything. If that is true, it is unsettling to think about who he might become in the future. Juno had already made up her mind. This person should not become Erica's husband. People who have inspired such fear since their youth should not start families. Meanwhile, Harold realized that 3 weeks had passed since he was hit in the face, and a month since they arrived. The situation was starting to seem suspicious. He wanted to send the girls home as soon as possible, but there was not enough time because he needed to build connections with trade guilds for future success. There was a knock at the door from the butler, Norman. He said Harold's father wanted to speak with him right away. Lord Guyden waited in his office. He remembered Lady Erica's poor health and decided to let them leave for Sumaragi right away. Harold felt happy about the news but pretended to be sad in front of his father, as if it was hard for him to part with his fiancée. Hayden kindly allowed his son to accompany the girl. Such generosity surprised Harold. He tried to object, but it was already too late. The decision had been made. The father explained that Lady Erica is the greatest treasure of the Sumaragi lands. His son must care for her as his future wife and the mother of his heir. Harold struggled to hide his disgust, wanting nothing to do with the girl he tried to avoid. His father acted as a cynical strategist, caring only about the family's reputation. Things kept getting worse. Carrying out his plan seemed impossible for Harold if he had to stay close to Erica all the time. Being near her felt like wandering through a minefield blindfolded. At that point, the trip became a chance to share his special way of growing food. Meeting Tasuku in person would help him offer the method on behalf of his family. When the situation calls for it, act accordingly. Harold welcomed the opportunity, feeling confident that Erica's father would accept his terms. This way, he could please Erica's father and carry out his own plans at the same time. Lord Guyden felt genuine happiness when his son agreed to travel to distant lands for his bride, believing that perfect harmony existed between the young couple. Harold played the role of the perfect son, promising his father he would fulfill his duty as heir. Deep inside, though, he felt strong hatred toward the greedy and cruel lord. Meanwhile, in the distant village of Blash, a mysterious stranger arrived. This person politely asked the locals questions, as if searching for something very important. The tall blonde man explained why he had come. He was looking for a woman named Clara Emerald and hoped his friendly smile would make the villager trust him. Nearby, where the stranger had appeared, Clara, a former maid, was hanging clean laundry outside the house she shared with her daughter. The village sat among beautiful scenery, and even after 5 months, Clara still found it hard to believe her new, peaceful life was real. Sometimes memories of that terrible day would return, when Lord Hayden wanted her executed, and she almost left this world forever, never getting the chance to see her daughter grow up. Then something unexpected happened. A boy, just 1 year older than her Colette, offered her his help. What made this even more remarkable was that he turned out to be the son of a lord. Thoughts of Harold often filled Clara's mind. She wondered how he was doing and if he was still alive. At times, the urge to reach out to him appeared, but the danger of doing so always held her back. She understood that she could not let the Stokes family know, because if anyone discovered she and her daughter were alive, Harold would be in great danger. Memories faded when Clara's neighbor Jonah came up to her. Earlier that morning, Jonah had unsuccessfully searched for her son, Reiner. Clara reassured her and explained that Rainer and Colette had gone to the farm to get some milk and should be back soon. Jonah thanked her, feeling tired after searching the whole village. Clara apologized because her son often brings them milk and helps Colette. But Yona just smiled and said that her boy dreams of joining the Night Order, so helping out is good practice for him. Before leaving, she told Clara she could give her son some work to do, just not too much. Clara decided to bake cookies for the children. At that moment, a stranger appeared who had already been watching his target. He called her by name, Clara Amaro, and she replied cautiously, confirming it was her. The smile left his face. He got straight to the point and asked what Clara knew about a boy named Harold Stokes. Clara felt scared. The stranger asked if it was true that the young heir had killed someone in a cruel way. He wanted only a simple yes or no to the rumors. The stranger's appearance and awkward questions made Clara think about her own safety. But if he wanted to harm her, he would have done it already. Keeping her promise, she said she did not know anything and asked to be left alone. The stranger agreed but promised to return. At that moment, Clara imagined with fear that the Lord might become suspicious and everything could turn into a terrible disaster for Harold. She quietly began to pray for him. While Clara prayed in a distant village, Harold, Erica, and Juno arrived in Seminogus. The head of the Tassoc family warmly welcomed his daughter and showed respect to Harold, offering him a chance to rest in any room after the long journey. However, the young aristocrat chose to discuss important matters right away. With pride in his eyes, he called Tasuku a loser and suggested they find time soon for an important conversation, as the topic would be serious. In that moment, Harold realized he had been too harsh with the homeowner. Politeness seemed to come naturally to him only when his unusual fiancée was around. Expecting to see anger on Tasuki's face, he was surprised when Tasuki calmly suggested postponing their talk until tomorrow, explaining that there were more urgent matters that needed immediate attention. Such calmness surprised Harold, matching perfectly the image of a wise leader from the original game. Still, Juno realized that meeting this person would not be easy for them. Even though the owner did not care, Juno stayed determined and tried to find out his true intentions. The conversation started with a report on the Stokes family, but Tassoc thanked her and asked to discuss it later, promising to review the document afterwards. Juno felt disappointed because she couldn't uncover all the secrets. The three Stokes servants stayed silent, as if they had sworn to protect the mysteries. The only source turned out to be talkative Zen, who accidentally revealed a few interesting things. This meant just one thing: Harold had complete control over the information. However, Juno's spies noticed that Zen, a trusted member of Harold's team, often visits farms and workshops. This suggests that something important is happening behind the scenes. The villagers seemed wary and kept to themselves. Gaining their trust to learn the truth would be very difficult. For Juno, giving up is not an option. Every task gets done, no matter how much time, effort, or money it takes. Right now, inside the Sumaragi house, taking action became much harder. At this moment, her best spy returned, a young blonde agent from the JARCE organization. Juno was pleased the task was finished quickly and immediately asked what he had learned during his trip to the remote village. The agent shared that a woman named Clara really does live in the village of Blash. Still, Juno wanted more details and asked if he had met her in person. He confirmed the meeting but admitted that Clara refused to talk. Still, he is sure that she knows Harold Stokes very well. Juno started thinking seriously. She realized she had no choice but to go to Blash herself and speak with the mysterious woman. The next day, while waiting for an audience with Tasuki, Harold enjoyed green tea and quietly thought about his revolutionary agricultural technology idea. His goals had now changed. He believed that if the Sumaragi family had gotten this technology earlier, before the events of the game, it would have given them a major advantage. In the original story, it took a year after the journey began before the raider hero and his allies discovered a way to escape the destruction caused by the widespread plague. Now things have changed. If Tasuka supports Harold, it will create more chances to help the team of heroes and make it easier for Harold to stay alive. That is why he wrote that first letter to Mr. Tasuki, to choose a path that was not in the original story. But that was not the only difference. In this world, the elixirs of life had different qualities, so to sell them to Tasuki, new samples would need to be created, and the production process improved. Everything had been going smoothly until now, but Harold suddenly faced a shortage of workers. Expanding the cultivation method was no longer possible, and when the game's story begins, there will be no help available. The only way to avoid an early death is to solve the production problem now and start the agricultural project as soon as possible. Tasuka finally arrived and apologized for being late. Harold ignored his smile and immediately started talking about the many problems on his mind. He admitted that things were difficult, but said the medicine Harold gave him made it much easier to manage everything. With a deep bow, he thanked the young man, but Harold asked him not to lower his head because he had acted based on his own reasons, not for gratitude. Tatuska insisted that he had to thank the person who saved the situation. Even without knowing Harold's true reasons, he admitted that the changes began because of him. Harold could not hold back and called him pathetic, saying that a lord from a noble family should not thank an ordinary boy. Such arrogance stunned Tasuku. He stayed calm and said he was glad to meet a young man with great potential, even if Harold himself did not appreciate it. Hearing this, Harold offered to help with the important task. Tasuka suspected that this might be the real reason he was invited, but something about the conversation seemed more complicated. Harold quickly handed the documents to the host, explaining he did not have time for long conversations, even with important people. Tasuka was surprised to find a detailed report about experiments with elixirs of life and the crops grown using them, including descriptions of every step of the process. Among the materials were charts showing crop yields with different amounts of fertilizer. The results surprised Tasuka. They were twice as high as those from traditional methods. Still, everything seemed so unbelievable that he set the documents aside. But Harold told him to accept it as fact or accuse the whole world of lying. The wise lord did not argue directly. He said it would not make sense and agreed to listen to the arguments because Harold was the one who could provide both the medicine and the knowledge of how to make it. Harold said that it does not matter what Tasuka thinks because listening to information is free. He again suggested reading the document more carefully. He explained that this was just a copy, prepared especially for him. After saying this, he took a long sip of tea, and silence filled the room as everyone became lost in their own thoughts. At that moment, Tasuka remembered what Juno had said in the report. This young man was not a puppet. He made his own decisions, and that changed the way Tasuka saw everything. Tasuka saw for himself that such complex and precise actions cannot be done under someone else's control. Harold acts on his own. Still, this might have been a clever trick. Tasuka could simply say he did not believe it and use the method himself, relying on the hints given in the report. Harold seemed to expect this outcome and calmly let his opponent take control. This was only the beginning, leading up to the main event. Tasuka realized that refusing the negotiations now would be too risky because he had a chance to see the results for himself and maybe improve his family's situation. The wise lord chose to wait for Harold's main offer while also trying to figure out his real reasons. Someone this cunning rarely acts out of kindness. Tasuka broke the silence, giving the young man a chance to speak. Harold boldly pointed out that without this conversation, there would have been no negotiations at all. Noticing interest in the listener's eyes, Harold suggested imagining that all the data in the report was true. Then he asked, "What would you do if you were in my position?" Tasuka agreed that the discovery is impressive, and if everything goes smoothly, farming across the country can move to a whole new level. He added that he could only allow the wide use of the method after reaching a certain level of stability. Harold immediately asked if there might be a temptation to create a monopoly. The lord did not hesitate and said no. He knew that a monopoly would only lead to conflict. He was wise enough not to make enemies just for short-term profit. This answer suited Harold completely since he felt the same way. Still, he had no objection. Making money from the method was not a bad thing. The moment came for the main proposal. Harold asked if Tasuka was ready to listen until the end. Tasuka already felt a bit tired of Harold's way of speaking, but politely agreed to let him continue. While enjoying the moment, Harold suggested becoming partners in development, calling the old man a loser who just got lucky to meet such a genius. Tasuka asked why he should be involved if he had not developed anything. Harold explained that it was just a formality and that all documents were currently being issued under Sumaragi's name. Lord did not understand why his name was being used. However, Harold's different behavior behind closed doors suggested that he was hiding something from his parents. Otherwise, the head of the Stokes family, Lord Hayden, would have proudly talked about his son's talent at the engagement, or at least mentioned it in a letter. There was also the letter that Harold sent through Erica, warning about the downfall of the Stokes family. More and more questions kept coming up. Tasuka decided to get straight to the point and asked if Harold was really hiding his method from the parents for personal reasons. Harold explained that it was important to understand his parents' nature. If they found out, they would immediately take control of the method and profit from it. Right now, He does not have enough people to do everything on his own. If more farmers join, both the parents will lose their authority and control will go to others. Tasuka agreed with the concerns, but did not understand why Harold came to him, since anyone would have accepted such a good offer. Harold explained that out of all the losers around, Tasuka was the easiest to deal with. However, if Tasuka refused, then someone else would have to be found. However, this will probably not be necessary because everyone will act when the well-being of their own people is at stake. Tasuku was surprised by the young man's confidence. He asked where this confidence came from. Harold replied that there was no other choice. The Lord realized he was truly cornered. Harold's confidence clearly was no accident. Everything must have been planned in advance. Harold planned his moves like a chess player, blocking every escape route before the game even started. Tasuka never realized when he walked into the trap. The first letter from the young man came to mind, the one with the medicine and the warning about the epidemic, and suddenly everything started to make sense. In the same letter, Harold stated directly that this engagement would be painful for both sides because the father would have to give up his daughter to gain financial support for the home of his sister. The young man also shared how his parents take everything from the people just to live in luxury. He believes that an uprising is only a matter of time. This means Tasuka will have a chance to take his daughter away before everything falls apart. Harold shared a plan that included producing medicine, setting up defenses based on an epidemic map, and using an unknown technology to help restore the economy. By following the instructions, Sumaragi can strengthen her own domain without help from the Stokes. Most importantly, she will meet the 3 key conditions needed to break off the engagement. These conditions will decide whether he can free Erica or not. Tasuka finally realized which technology was mentioned in the letter and asked Harold to confirm. The old man was surprised by the young man's foresight, but did not understand the real reason behind it. Harold suggested not to worry about it, since his answer would not change anyway. Despite everything, the Lord agreed because the chance to save both the people and his own family seemed too tempting. Still, the reason why Harold cared so much about the Sumaragi family remained unclear to him. Harold thought for a moment and answered honestly. Even if he explained, Tasuka would not understand. So, he decided not to waste time. At that point, the focus returned to the main issue. Either Tasuka agrees, or the conversation ends, and he leaves to find someone else. The old man still wondered why this young man let him choose, even in a situation like this. But he realized that by agreeing, he could save both his family and his daughter's future. Refusal would mean having to accept the engagement and rely on the support of the Stokes family, losing any chance for real change. All of Harold's efforts would go to waste. Despite knowing the risks, Harold kept moving forward, letting others make their own choices. He understood that ultimately, Tasuka stood to gain the most from this deal. At last, Lord Sumaragi agreed. Harold expected this and even gave the old man credit for making a quick decision. Harold advised Tasuka to prepare the fields and people as soon as possible, because he would soon start explaining his cultivation technology, which would be enough for the first stage. In the future, a trading company or even a guild with strong influence and full control will be needed. This would become Tasuka's responsibility. The wise lord quickly saw that with the trading network, they could enter the market and spread the technology not just within the country, but eventually across the entire continent. Harold boldly complimented him, saying the old man was actually smarter than the others. In other words, he could handle the task. Pleased with the results, Tasuka encouraged the young man to reach out for any reason and promised full support without limitations. Harold quickly took the chance to ask for the best martial arts instructor so he could gain real fighting experience and improve his skills. After the meeting, relaxing in the hot springs became his way to unwind, especially in a place like Sumaragi. This was the best way to feel at peace. Relaxing in the warm water and watching cherry blossom petals float nearby, Harold reflected on recent events and felt pleased with his successful deal and how quickly he found a reliable partner. Meanwhile, Tasuka and the family decided to meet with Agent Juno, who had important information to share about Harold. From the start, Juno mentioned that Erica had asked her to keep an eye on Harold for some time, so she already understood his personality and abilities well. Erica apologized to her father for using spies without permission, but explained that the situation was very serious. Tasuka asked her to give more details. The girl asked if he had heard rumors that Harold had killed a maid and her child using magic. Tasuka replied that yes, this was mentioned in the reports, but he considered it to be pointless gossip. Erika explained that she simply wanted to find out the truth for herself. The father then asked if he understood correctly that the woman and the child were still alive. Erika confirmed that she and Juno's team tried to find out the truth. The agent really did say that everything was a lie. Clara, who used to work as a maid, and her daughter Colette lived quietly in the distant village of Blash, where nobody knew about them, so they were safe. The woman had not changed her name, so it was easy to find her. She refused to talk about the incident, so Juno decided to visit her in person. The agent quickly located the house and knocked, politely asking for a few minutes to talk. Juno politely introduced herself, shared her name, and explained the reason for her visit, clearly stating that she represented the Sumaragi family. Clearly, Clara already understood why they had come, and suspected that the tall, blonde man was the first messenger from Sumaragi. Juno apologized for any rudeness from her subordinate. Juno explained that Harold and Erika are planning their wedding, but because Harold is suspected of killing innocent people, many members of the Sumaragi family do not like him. At that moment, Clara broke her promise and decided to defend the man who had saved her. Right away, Juno made it clear that she does not believe Harold is cruel, because Clara herself is the main proof of his innocence. The only problem is that these rumors are being spread by Harold himself. A young aristocrat chose to be seen as a murderer and confessed to a crime he did not commit, hoping to make himself hated by villagers and townspeople. Behind his cold appearance, he quietly suffers a great deal. Juno explained that she does not plan to reveal the truth herself, but if Clara shares the details, it could give Harold a strong ally and change how others see him. Only Clara could help reduce Harold's guilt and help him earn respect from those he would need to join in the future. Clara felt torn by doubt because she had promised never to reveal the terrible truth about the day she almost died. Still, she had survived that day only because Harold saved her. A feeling of guilt weighed on the woman, knowing the young lord was suffering because of her. Juno's visit had left her emotionally overwhelmed. The agent suggested she calm down and share a few memories to help her feel better. Juno promised to do everything she could to support Harold and Erika, even without Clara's help. Still, Clara wanted to be involved. She invited the guests to her home because such matters should not be discussed where strangers might hear. The truth is best shared in a comfortable, private setting. Clara promised to do everything she could to help Harold because she owed him not only her own life, but also the life of her only daughter. Juno learned that it all started when Clara almost hurt Harold. She was going to be punished harshly. Then the boy suggested to his father that he conduct the experiment himself, and this saved Clara. In reality, Harold hid her in the dungeon, bought some time, and planned an escape. Later, he quietly took Clara and her daughter out of the estate. Everything, from supplies to money, was provided directly by him. This was not an act of pity, but a carefully planned effort to protect. Carrying the label of a killer helps draw attention away from Clara and Colette, keeping them safe from any danger. The news left Tasuka shocked. Surprise took over as Erika quickly left the room without waiting for the conversation to end. Admitting her feelings, she said she wanted to apologize to Harold right away. Guilt still bothered her about that evening when emotions took over and she hit him. Erika felt ashamed of her behavior and believed she did not deserve forgiveness. However, Tasuka stopped her and told her not to make any rash decisions. The head of the family reminded everyone of the danger Harold faced for their sake. Now, after learning the truth, they need to stay silent and not share it with anyone. If Harold finds out that the secret is out, he will become even more cautious and push Erika away even more. Even though Tasuka understands his daughter's feelings, he advised her to be patient. He asked why she really wanted to apologize, and if she just wanted to feel better herself. Erika did not know how to answer and felt unsure about what to do next. When someone cannot apologize or admit fault to the person they hurt, moving forward becomes nearly impossible. With concern for his daughter, Tasuka gently stroked her head and advised her to become someone who could support Harold and everyone who would follow him. This young man stands out from everyone else. His incredible strength can be intimidating, but if Erika truly wants to make up for her past mistakes, She needs to get closer to Harold. Tasuka suggested paying close attention to what the young aristocrat wants and understanding him better than anyone else. The girl thought about it and decided to follow her father's advice. Still, this will be a very difficult journey. Harold truly needs allies, but in his world there is hardly any room for friends. Erica needs to accept that, despite all her efforts, she might always remain just a shadow for Harold, and perhaps their hearts will never come together. First, it is important for her to answer honestly if she is truly ready to trust this man and follow him without any doubts. Tasuka asked not to answer now. The decision will come with time. For now, it is enough to offer a sincere apology for raising a hand against her fiancé. These words made Erica think deeply, but she still could not make a final decision. She quietly left the room without saying anything. Tasuka admitted that after hearing about the engagement, his daughter felt down, but now her condition has worsened. His wife noticed that this time, the reason is completely different. Careful words pointed out that it sounds as if they are seeing their child grow up for the first time. Tasuka smiled and said he had never felt such deep emotions before when looking at Erica. He was glad he could help her in such a difficult time. After some time, Harold finally reached the place Tasuka had recommended, a martial arts temple where he could learn new skills. The impressive building stood as the largest battle temple of Sumaragi. Both adults and children trained here, learning skills from archery to magic and sword fighting. Harold did not understand why Tasuka brought the sad Erica along on this journey. The old man only gave a mysterious answer, saying the martial arts master had asked for it. The young man did not argue because he did not care. Gaining combat experience was his main goal, and that was all that mattered to him. Soon he had already changed into his battle clothes. Tasuka was surprised that he knew exactly how everything should look. Harold just called it a small detail. Tasuka then called over a young man named Itsuki, who warmly hugged Erica since they had not seen each other in a long time. Itsuki stayed close to her at all times, often asking about her health and promising to bring many souvenirs. Still, Erica felt uncomfortable and tried to get away. Harold thought it was all a silly joke and accused Tasuku of lying, saying an ordinary boy could not be his rival. But the old man told him not to jump to conclusions, as Itsuki's strength is far from ordinary. Harold expected to see a legendary instructor, not an ordinary young man. It surprised him that such a master could look like a child. Itsuki, smiling, simply reminded him that he was still very young. First, the young man introduced himself as Erica's older brother, ready to show what he could do. Harold looked on with surprise, realizing this was another member of the Tasuki family. The boys moved closer, and Itsuki suddenly asked if Harold was really Erica's fiancé. A moment later, a strong hand grabbed his clothes. Harold got ready for a fight, but Itsuki instead smiled with excitement, shook his hand like they were old friends, and greeted him as his sister's boyfriend. Confused and surprised, Harold thought Itsuki must be another crazy person. The students in the large hall quickly noticed Master Itsuki standing next to Erica's fiancé and decided it was time to see the legendary fencing for themselves. Meanwhile, Erica's brother kept shaking Harold with enthusiasm, hoping for a sparring match. Harold, stunned, insisted that he stop this nonsense. Noticing his anger, Itsuki suggested they take this chance and start the match, saying that a heated moment is the best time to fight. He hurried to get the bamboo swords, and Erica helped him. Harold carefully watched how this unusual person paid close attention to everything. In the game Harold remembered from his past life, this swordsman was mentioned only briefly, so Harold knew very little about him. Itsuki was not seen as an important character, so his love for his sister came as a real surprise. Lifting his sword, he asked Harold if he even knew how to use it. Harold made a few impressive moves and thought dismissively that it was just an ordinary stick. He much preferred a real steel sword, though maybe that was simply his gaming habit. The students had already taken their seats in the stands and were waiting for the sparring match to start. All this attention made Harold uncomfortable and created tension inside him. Even though Itsuki wasn't part of the original story, he still belonged in this world of magic and swords. Being chosen by Tasuka meant he was truly strong. The young aristocrat remembered fighting the original Harold, and this memory made him feel more confident. All the same skills and quick reflexes should remain in the new body. Lately, with all the training, his body felt strong and in control, and that could be enough to defeat Master Itsuki. Tasuka looked at the ready opponents and explained the rules. Only bamboo swords were allowed, no strikes to vital areas, and both magic and metal were forbidden. There was no time limit. The winner was the one who made the opponent stop fighting. Everything else followed the rules of a real match. If there are no questions, the fight can begin. Harold did not like the way the fight was organized, but Tasuka explained that the rules were there to prevent injuries. In a real war, there would be no such limits. Harold did not argue. He accepted these strange rules. Meanwhile, Itsuki understood well why his father acted this way, knowing even a bamboo sword can cause injury. Itsuki had plenty of fighting experience and had fought many times against adult warriors. He felt confident that he was strong enough to leave all his peers behind. Erika's brother already felt disappointed because he had hoped for an exciting fight, but ended up in a duel with a young aristocrat who could not be harmed without causing trouble for the family. Aware of his own limits, Itsuki decided to give his opponent an advantage. This move offered a chance to observe and understand him better, especially if he might later join the heroes as an ally. Because of this, Erika's brother suggested that Harold should make the first move and show what he could do, if he actually had any fencing skills at all. Tension filled the room. The audience waited in silence as Tasuka gave a nod to begin. Harold braced himself for his first real match. The young aristocrat leaped forward and threw his strongest punch. Suddenly, he realized his opponent was incredibly fast. The sword slipped from Harold's hands so quickly that no one saw how it happened. Itsuki calmly pointed out that in a real fight, he would already be dead. Harold said this was just a warm-up, not planning to give up. He tried to hide his fear, but deep inside he was shocked. The opponent turned out to be much stronger than expected. Itsuki moved so quickly that it was almost impossible to follow his actions. Harold chose to blame it on stress and surprise, telling himself he would focus better next time. For now, he waited quietly for the next move. Itsuki deliberately changed the direction of his strike and knocked the sword out of his opponent's hand instead of hitting the body. This move seemed to invite a more serious continuation of the fight. Harold realized he was facing an opponent just like himself, someone ready to fight with everything he had to test his true abilities. Itsuki apologized for being condescending at first and suggested having a serious duel with no pointless restrictions. Harold grew angry. He called his opponent an idiot, saying he had come from far away just for this match. Itsuki ignored the insult and simply nodded. Now he decided the next move would be his. Harold was already getting ready to teach the bold master a lesson. Tasuka warned his son, but Itsuki did not plan to let his father down. Determined to prove how serious he was, he prepared to show his true intentions in this fight. The second round started with a fast attack from Itsuki. Harold was stunned by the opponent's speed. Itsuki was moving at a whole new level. Despite the strong attack, Harold managed to block the strike. He calmly said that he was now ready to fight and understood how Itsuki fought. The blows came more often. Itsuki watched his opponent's tense face closely, trying to see how much longer Harold could last. The crowd watched with great interest as Harold showed impressive speed. However, he had not demonstrated any other skills yet because Itsuki's pressure kept all his power in check. When Itsuki keeps Harold from using his speed, Harold becomes too easy to predict and his punches lose power. He relies only on anger in a fight, without any real fighting skills. One of the masters pointed out that Harold's skill with a sword is barely at an amateur level. He cannot read the moves of an opponent like Itsuki. The young aristocrat tries to make up for his lack of experience by moving quickly, but this only helps for a short time. With better technique, Itsuki slowly takes control of the situation. From the very beginning, the result of the battle was clear. Harold would tire quickly, and it was only a matter of time. Everyone was sure that Itsuki had the clear advantage and wondered why Harold was only defending. But Harold calmly smiled because he noticed that his opponent was starting to breathe more heavily. Itsuki showed much more skill, but Harold kept going and looked for any opportunity to win. The fight grew more intense as both started using their full strength, no longer caring about the consequences. This was no longer just practice. It had become a real fight. Suddenly, Harold lost his sword again after a powerful strike. Itsuki was surprised, but the boy quickly rushed forward. In the next moment, his palm struck Itsuki in the chest. Itsuki did not expect an attack from an unarmed opponent and briefly lost focus. Itsuki fell to the ground. Harold quickly picked up the sword and touched it to his opponent's head. At that moment, Tasuka immediately stopped the fight. Erika's older brother was surprised because he lost to a much younger opponent. Harold is the kind of rival who learns quickly and improves right in the middle of a fight. Despite losing, Izuki stayed positive and suggested having a rematch. Harold simply joked that the outcome would be the same. Itsuki looked surprised and asked for an explanation, and Harold admitted he had been too foolish to even remember his father's words that a bamboo sword already means war. It is hard to believe that someone so clumsy could ever lead the Sumaragi family. He has not learned the basic rules of fighting, and still does not understand how he ended up on the floor. Erika's older brother just laughed at his words, though Harold could not see what was funny. An argument started, but Itsuki asked everyone to keep things respectful. In fact, Itsuki felt satisfied with his first match against his sister's future husband, because the opponent proved to be strong enough to protect Erika in the future. Annoyed by Itsuki's jokes, Harold left the training room in anger. Itsuki laughed and called him his brother-in-law, saying there was no escaping it now. Harold found this sudden friendliness suspicious and unnatural. He did not like Itsuki and did not feel any urge to trust him. Harold admitted that his opponent was indeed stronger, but losing because of a disqualification felt even worse than losing fairly. Accepting this was difficult for him. Stepping outside, the young man enjoyed the quiet and the beauty of nature. There were no loud vendors here, and the peaceful scene reminded him of his home in Japan. But this was not his real home. It was the world of a game where he had lived as the antagonist for 5 months, destined to die in 8 years according to the story. Harold wondered if death would reach him before the hero finished the story. Even after defeating the final boss, returning home remained uncertain. It is quite possible he will stay here forever, leaving the past behind. Still, Harold was not ready to give up. The real Harold would not break down. At that moment, Erika appeared. This was unexpected because the young man never thought he would meet his future wife right then. Before this meeting, while sitting alone in nature, he realized that he could not allow himself to show weakness. A true herald does not pity himself or break down. Meanwhile, in the hall, Itsuki apologized to his father for calling Harold his brother too soon. Tasuka just smiled, feeling that his son had taken the joke a bit too far. Itsuki advised Erika to follow Harold and show some sympathy, hoping it might bring them closer and help build a stronger partnership. The girl agreed, though she wondered if Harold really needed support since he never seemed weak or vulnerable. Unable to resist the urge to be near him, she set out to find him, determined to speak honestly and openly. On the way, her father's words came to mind. He always thought Harold was different. His strength and stubbornness pushed people away on the outside, but deep down they drew others in. Approaching carefully, she noticed the boy's situation. He keeps struggling, but always faces his challenges with his head held high. Strength cannot exist without weakness. Lonely Harold never had anyone to show his true feelings to. Even when choosing to protect others, he would close himself off with pride and arrogance, completely separating himself from the feelings of those around him. Perhaps this was the wish her father spoke about, to be the one who could truly understand Harold. Erika decided to do everything she could to make this mission a reality. She may not be perfect, but she has the strength and determination to take action. In the end, destiny led her to become his closest ally, offering support during tough times and sharing wise advice. Erika praised the fight and admitted honestly that, even without knowing much about fencing, she could see that Harold was a strong opponent for her brother. She called his strategy brilliant, to lose a battle in order to win the war. But Harold took it as a mockery, fully aware that he had lost. Erika laughed, then quickly apologized when she realized she had said too much. Feeling embarrassed, she truly wanted to make things right. An apology. Yet, the reason behind the girl's gentle attitude remained a mystery to Harold, especially towards someone like him. Hated her? The whole situation seemed very suspicious. Harold wanted to stay away from Erika because any contact with her could put his life in danger. He firmly told her to leave. Still, Erika stayed and asked why she could not talk to her future husband. Harold said she would be better off without him. But Erika refused to give in. She had the right to speak as well. In the end, the young man gave in, and offered to let her say whatever she wanted. She thanked him and started by saying she regretted how she acted that night. Losing control of her emotions, she spoke harshly to him and even raised her hand against him. This was the worst thing she could have done, so now she wanted to sincerely apologize. Her heartfelt words made Harold laugh because he did not expect her to apologize for something so small. Deep down, he knew he had caused the situation himself. Her greatest strength is the ability to admit mistakes and say sorry. Players always appreciated Erica Summers for this quality. Harold realized that now Erica just wanted to shower him with her kindness, but this only annoyed him because he knew what was coming. Her words carried no weight. To him, they sounded empty, and Erica seemed like a poor actress just pretending to care. He said her fake kindness made him feel sick and told her to go play with her maid. Then he added that the best gift would be never seeing her again. Coldly, he finished by saying she was a disgusting person pretending to be kind when she was not. Erica stood in shock, unsure of what to say. Without wanting to listen further, Harold quickly walked away, angry with himself for letting all his frustration out on her. Harold realized that the girl was right about some things, but he did not need her kindness. Erica also understood that she still lacked a lot before she could challenge fate itself. She noticed how hard it was for him to accept kindness from others, but still chose to try to understand him, even if it meant she would have to endure his harsh words. Erica wanted to get closer to Harold, knowing the journey would not be easy. Even now, it was clear he needed support and understanding. She stood for a moment longer, not ready to call out, but promised herself that one day she would catch up with Harold and be by his side. Staying with this mysterious person felt important deep down. Looking after them became a personal goal. Meanwhile, on the vast Bin Plateau, a group of soldiers faced a giant monster, but it proved too strong. Harold told everyone to fall back. A young aristocrat decided to kill the beast himself, thinking it was not very dangerous. He calmly waited as the creature charged straight toward him. At the last moment, dodged the attack and with quick precision cut through his sword, chopping off. Harold felt pleased with himself. He had completed the task better than the whole squad, and now the blacksmiths would receive a valuable trophy. Even without its horn, the monster did not give up. It roared and suddenly started casting magic spells. In just seconds, the creature cast the Wrath of the Earth spell, sending a powerful shock through the plateau and cracking the ground. Harold was surprised to see a cloud of stones and dust rising up in front of him, blocking the horizon. Still, the young lord felt no fear. He chose to finish what he started, jumped up, and rushed straight at his enemy. The timing was perfect for a magic lightning strike. Taking up a good position, Harold got ready to defeat the monster. A single strike did the job. The storm wind spell was powerful and turned the monster to ashes in seconds. The soldiers were amazed as the young lord had defeated a medium-level monster on his own. Without delay, Harold ordered them to clear the path right away. The commander ordered the first squad to take the horn and told the others to move the charred remains. He scolded the soldiers the whole time, calling them useless idiots. They talked quietly about Lord Harold's strength. Some told newcomers how he had started a conquest 3 years ago. Even back then, he was already very powerful. The real importance was not his strength, but the fact that he was the heir to the Stokes family. At first, his parents strongly opposed his plans. When Harold showed what he could do, they had no choice but to agree. Still, even with his strength, he got injured right at the start of the journey. If the parents had found out about this, some other captains might not have wanted to follow him. The new recruit was surprised by the danger, but reassured his colleague that it was unlikely anyone would have to face Harold's parents' anger, although he would soon learn differently. 3 years ago, frightened soldiers brought Harold to the Sumaragi estate. He was badly wounded and losing a lot of blood, so they urgently asked for help. Juno hurried ahead, eager to find out what had happened to the young lord. The captain of the guard explained that Harold had been injured by a powerful monster during the conquest campaign. The reason such a young man chose to get involved in something so dangerous was unclear to her. The captain insisted that they find a room right away and call for a doctor or a healer. Anxiety filled him because the captain felt guilty for failing to protect the lord at a crucial moment, even though he was responsible for his safety. Despite his condition, Harold stayed sharp with his words, calling the captain an ungrateful creature and suggesting that saving his miserable life had been a waste. The captain quickly apologized, but Harold told him not to treat him like a child. Harold scolded the soldiers, saying they fight worse than the dead, and if they do not like it, they should learn to handle their swords better. These words shocked both the captain and Juno. One of the soldiers apologized for doing a poor job. Harold told them to leave the soldier alone because he just wanted to. Before leaving, an order was given to the captain not to tell the parents about the injury because that would mean no more missions. Everyone must keep this secret. The captain made a promise. Still, a sense of shame and guilt weighed on him because the person he was supposed to protect was actually the one who should have been protecting him. At that moment, Harold did something greater for everyone by saving their lives from the punishment that would have surely come from his harsh father. Haydn stayed in his thoughts. Even 3 years later, the captain remembered that day with gratitude. The desire to become stronger remained with him, and this story continued to inspire him. As the captain remembered the past, Harold realized he had gained enough battle experience from fighting monsters, and he became now much stronger, but many monsters still lay ahead. Hunting them would mean risking others' lives, and his people could not bear such a loss. That is why Harold decided to stop hunting and head to the Sumaragi estate to rest and learn the latest news. At the news station, Tasuku was there, and already knew about his bravery during the campaign. Harold asked how the talks with his father went. Everything worked out well. The farms no longer have to pay contract fees, the cost for using a special cultivation method has been reduced, and some taxes have been refunded. The Stokes family can now manage their land more efficiently and save money. Harold suggested moving forward and fully merging the management. Tasuka advised waiting until the wedding with Erica before discussing it officially. The boy just laughed, eager to see how his father would react when he found out the engagement might be called off. Wanting to change the subject, Tasuka asked about another battle with a monster. Harold felt tired of these questions and thought everyone just wanted to hear the same story. Tasuka advised Harold to stay calm and reminded him how many times he had come home with serious injuries. This is why Tasuka always feels worried when the young man goes into battle. But Harold brushed it off, saying there was no need to think so badly of him. No foolish monster would ever bother him again. Hearing these words surprised Tasuku, since it's rare to hear something like that from a young man. In his usual manner, Harold bluntly suggested the old man should keep a closer eye on his own son. Tasuku only found this rudeness amusing and looked forward to their next duel. Suddenly, the old man remembered something important. There would soon be a tournament in Delphi, and he suggested that Harold take part if he felt confident enough. Participants are grouped by age, so Harold will not meet Itsuki. Still, this experience will be very valuable for the young aristocrat. The idea caught Harold's interest because he wanted to test himself in duels with others. These were not fights to the death. After a short pause and a glance at the old man, he agreed to take part in the tournament. Tasuka thanked him and promised to let Izuki know right away, then got back to work. Harold jokingly wished him endless hard work, but meant no harm by it. As Harold walked, thoughts about the tournament filled his mind, especially the chance to face strong opponents like Itsuki. Even without knowing much about them, taking part in the competition was sure to strengthen his ties with the Sumaragi family. For 3 years, contact with Erica was limited to what was necessary. This distance felt comfortable, especially now, when frequent outbursts made it important to stay alert. Harold knew that many dangers lay ahead, and 5 years remained until the main story of the game would begin. He needed to avoid any random death and carefully plan for every possible risk. Meanwhile, in the port city of Delphi, the main character Rainer and his friend Colette arrived. Coming from a small village, Rainer was amazed by the size of the city. Rainer admired everything around him, especially the impressive bronze ship statue. But his father scolded him for acting like a simpleton. Colette asked everyone to quiet down and register for the tournament. Eager to explore the big city, Rainer did not want to miss his chance. Leaving his village for the first time filled him with excitement. The father was worried and couldn't calm or stop his son. He asked Mr. Orble to keep an eye on him and promised to take his son away right away if anything happened. Orble apologized to Colette for the inconvenience and decided to submit the tournament application himself on behalf of his son. They agreed to meet at the fountain with the ship statue. Colette ran after Rainer, but did not know which way he went. Suddenly, she stumbled and fell. Some locals advised her to watch her step and pay more attention to where she was going. At that moment, Erica walked by and saw that the girl's knee was bleeding. She offered to help and invited her to a quieter spot to check the wound. Colette felt embarrassed, but Erica reassured her. Erica is someone who never ignores the pain of others and always helps anyone in need. Grateful, Colette introduced herself. Erica quickly treated her wound, and Colette was impressed by the results. Erica explained that she was still learning and did not have much experience yet. Colette guessed that her new acquaintance came to the big city for the tournament. But Erica explained that she was only there to support others and did not plan to take part in any more fights. Erica then asked what brought Colette to the city. The village girl explained that she was accompanying a friend who wanted to join the Night Order. Erica thought this was a great goal. Colette added that her friend was very strong, even stronger than the grown men in their village. Erica guessed that Colette was from the village of Bluche, but Colette explained that she and her mother had moved here from another place 3 years ago. At that moment, everything became clear to Erica. Memories of Harold came to mind, confirming that Colette was exactly the girl she had imagined. Meanwhile, the blonde had no idea and just smiled. Erica asked not to pay attention to her being lost in thought and thanked for the pleasant conversation. She added that she needed to find her friend as soon as possible. She added that if their meeting was not just a coincidence, they would meet again and might become good friends for many years. Colette felt surprised by the idea. Erica asked if she really did not want it. The country girl just felt shy and thought she was not worthy of being friends with someone from the city. Erica dismissed these thoughts as nonsense. If fate brings them together again, that will prove a real connection, and their friendship will develop naturally. Colette agreed and promised to keep these feelings in her heart until they met again. In this world, the most important thing is to truly feel something with sincerity. After saying goodbye, the girls walked off in different directions. Colette watched the mysterious brunette for a while, softly whispering that she would wait for their next meeting. The presence of Erica at the table caught Harold by surprise. Avoiding conversation with her felt important, especially with her brother there, but there was no way to change the situation now. Erica looked unhappy. She wanted to have lunch with only Itsuki, but he pretended not to understand and offered to leave if he was in the way. Harold gave the order to stay. Being alone with Erica would be hard to bear. Erica did not want to stay either, but she could not show disrespect to her brother. Izuki pointed out that the tournament could lead to serious injuries, so having Erica there with her healing magic would be useful. No one else has those skills. Harold said he had no intention of getting hurt. However, Itsuki advised caution and insisted that Erica go with them. Erica replied that she would join only if absolutely necessary. When everyone is together, contact becomes unavoidable. In a critical moment, there is no time for explanations because help is needed right away. Harold silently agreed with the cheerful guy. After the shared meal, Erica stayed behind and met Juno. Her friend was surprised and asked if Erica had really had lunch with Harold. Erica explained she was just accompanying her brother, and they talked about her role as a healer. Juno asked if Erica had told Harold about meeting Colette, but Erica decided to keep it a secret for now. Juno did not understand why there was any need to hide something at all. Erica remembered that Harold still thinks they know nothing about Clara and her daughter. So until he decides to tell the truth himself, she will keep silent. Erica still hoped that when Colette met Harold, he would finally tell the truth. Maybe this kind country girl could become his ally. A strange feeling of jealousy appeared inside, thinking that the charming blonde might become someone more important to Harold. There was a worry that he might return her feelings. If Colette makes him happy, Erica will not be able to change anything anymore. Meanwhile, Harold arrived at the tournament venue and was amazed by the size of the arena. Walking through the city streets, the young man saw 2 men about to start a fight. He was surprised to see that taverns were already open in the morning. The men were so drunk that they could not control their emotions, and the argument quickly turned into a fight. Based on how the locals reacted, it seemed like this was a common thing. One of the drunk men stumbled and landed right at Harold's feet. Harold calmly pushed him away, sending him straight into a barrel of icy water. The people present were surprised by this interference, and the drunk man's friends started insulting Harold. He suggested they take a dip in the water themselves, thinking it might help them regain their senses. A large man, drunk from alcohol, threatened to beat up a stranger, ignoring the fact that the stranger was an aristocrat. At that moment, city guards arrived. Dressed in heavy armor, the soldiers ordered everyone to break up and stop fighting, calling the drunkards pathetic wretches. Suddenly, one of the drunk men lunged at Harold. The guard failed to stop him in time and was surprised to see the young man look at him with a calm, steady confidence. Harold waited calmly for the attacker to approach, then brought him down with a precise elbow strike to the stomach. The locals applauded, and the guard, impressed by the precise movement, praised the young aristocrat. Another soldier immediately tried to find out what had happened. Harold explained briefly that he just wanted to get rid of the drunk who came at him, and that was all there was to it. The guard liked this explanation and asked the young man to wait for a while. Showing concern, he asked if Harold was hurt. Harold replied that he was fine and said the drunk man was not even a challenge for him. The guard was surprised by how confident he was. Harold made a joke, saying the main thing is to avoid sudden movements, otherwise you might pull something and then it will be a problem. The young nobleman quickly grew tired of this conversation. He suggested the guard question the local drifters instead, saying he did not have time to chat. This only brought a smile to. The officer's face stayed serious. Another soldier asked what to do with the unconscious drunk. The lieutenant decided to question him later, but as soon as he turned around, he saw that Harold had already disappeared. Regret filled him for not learning the name of that mysterious boy with impressive fighting skills. By then, Harold was already somewhere else. The streets felt familiar. Recognition of the lieutenant came immediately, and any accidental meeting was out of the question. This man, once a knight of the order named Cody Luziel, was known as a powerful warrior. In the main story of the game, Cody led the Freyr mercenary group. This band was made up of adventurers, drifters, and outcasts. He sometimes offered help to the heroes, but more often took advantage of people before disappearing. Actually, Cody was just a minor character and not as dangerous as the others. Still, Harold did not expect to run into him so soon. The next day, Harold joined Itsuki and the girls. He soon discovered he had been registered under a false name. Itsuki, as usual, greeted everyone warmly and said it was a perfect day for a match. He explained that most of the people in the tournament are ordinary townsfolk, so he registered Harold under a different name to avoid disappointing his parents. Harold simply brushed it off, saying his parents would actually be pleased if he took down a few worthy opponents. For Itsuki, this came as no surprise, since the Stokes family's harsh nature was already well known. The first fight in the under-13 category began. The host encouraged the audience to cheer loudly, and Harold was introduced as Lord Gentleman. His opponent was a smiling blonde boy. Harold asked why he needed a mask. Itsuki explained that since he was taking part under an alias, it was better to cover his face from unnecessary attention. This made the young man very angry. He quickly tore off his mask and threw it on the ground. Itsuki did not argue and just suggested taking better care of his things. The arena was buzzing as the crowd had already had plenty to drink. Frustration built inside Harold, who called Itsuki a foolish prankster, annoyed by both his magic and his nickname. He promised himself he would get back at them for these jokes. The opponent could not understand why this person was so angry. All Harold wanted was to finish up quickly and leave the noisy place. In the crowd, a familiar blonde appeared. It was Colette, the woman he had recently saved. Eyes quickly shifted to the side and regret came for taking off the mask. With the mask on, staying popular was easy, hiding true feelings and enjoying the power of the mask artifact. With Colette here, it means another important person is close by. At that moment, the start of the battle was announced, and the participants were asked to get ready. Just a few steps were enough for Harold to defeat his young opponent. The boy dropped his weapon, began to cry, and admitted he had lost. The quick fight disappointed the crowd. They grumbled from their seats. Harold was named the winner and left the arena right away, his mind still on Colette and everything connected to her. Rainer is the main character in the game Brave Hearts and will become Harold's enemy in 5 years. Meeting him now would be too soon. Sincere hope filled him that Rainer was just a spectator. Then the announcer began to introduce the next participant. From the village of Bluch came Rainer. The young man enjoyed his moment of fame. waving a sword that shone in the sunlight. What irritated Harold most was that everything was supposed to go differently. According to the story, Raynor was meant to arrive in Delphi later and deliver a long speech. The aristocrat considered quietly leaving the tournament before having to face Raynor. However, this would be the second time running away from a character from the game. Raynor's hatred for Harold in the beginning was sparked by Clara's death and grew stronger because of Harold's arrogance. Now, Harold wants a different life, choosing peace without violence or conflict. If Clara is alive, Raynor has no reason to hate him, at least not until they start talking to each other. Harold remembered Cody, whom he never spoke to, even though it would have been a smart thing to do. Now he decided to meet him here, to gauge his strength, and maybe even earn his trust if he would not have to stay silent again. Using what he learned from the original game, Harold could guide Raynor, offer him advice, help him find the right direction, and make him stronger. There was a real chance to save the world earlier than in the original story. This opportunity could bring the ending of the story much closer, and Harold was determined not to let it slip away. While he was still making plans, Raynor had already won his first victory as the audience applauded. He finished quickly, showing impressive strength. Harold realized it was time to put his plan into action, but he was unsure how to approach Raynor. Most of his words were rough and harsh, which could only make things worse. At last, the man greeted the game's hero, and though his words were a bit sharp, he offered some praise for the victory. Raynor looked at him. This was the first meeting with the person who, in the original story, had killed him. At this time, Raynor was just an ordinary village boy and had not yet become a hero. He immediately recognized Harold and called him the fastest hand in the tournament, then asked how he managed to defeat Malik. Impressed by Harold's speed, he asked him to reveal his secret, or at least explain the method he used in training. He admitted to being quite fast himself, but had never learned that kind of movement. In response, the aristocrat told Raynor to be quiet, adding a bold gesture. Only then did the main character remember he had not introduced himself, and reached out his hand. Right then, Harold changed the whole course of the game. He said it was fine to call him by his name or whatever felt comfortable, and the young boy from the village thanked him sincerely for the introduction. Next, Harold returned to his blunt ways and called Raynor an idiot, but he also praised him for a fight that was much better than the others. After the handshake, Harold warned that he does not help anyone for free. If Raynor wants to learn his technique, he must experience it firsthand. If Raynor does not get eliminated in the next fight, they will meet again. Raynor gladly accepted the challenge and told Harold not to lose, otherwise there would be no meeting and no chance to compare their strengths. Harold replied by calling him a pitiful peasant, and advised him not to speak to an aristocrat in that manner, stressing that the only thing he should remember is the difference in their status. However, Raynor did not feel offended at all. Instead, after that conversation, he became even more interested in meeting the confident aristocrat. He wished him good luck and left. Only then did Harold realize that everyone around was watching him closely. After all, they had just spoken with Raynor himself. Now he would have to face their attention and maybe even their dislike. But the hero will never back down. He is destined to save the world from a deadly threat. Harold looked forward to meeting him again, not to test his strength, but to see the depth of this young man's spirit. The next match in the under-13 group was set to take place between two top competitors, the mysterious gentleman and the skilled fighter Raynor Gregg. Meanwhile, Colette watched her best friend with deep emotion, hoping with all her heart that he would win. Raynor stepped into the arena, determined to keep his promise. Harold suggested waiting before celebrating, as Raynor still needed to prove his strength and show he deserved to be called a hero. The tournament host announced the start of the fight. The village boy charged first, lifting his heavy sword for a powerful strike. The attack missed as Harold easily dodged it. This only made Raynor angrier, and he started swinging his sword wildly. Harold actually felt a bit disappointed. He blocked every move easily, and Raynor seemed too weak to be a true main character. Right now, though, Raynor was just an ordinary teenager, even if he was supposed to be stronger. While the crowd cheered loudly, Colette quietly watched the fight. At the same time, Raynor felt confused about why he could not hit his opponent. Harold said with disdain that this was not a duel but a real tragedy. Raynor felt confused and did not understand what was happening. Harold, clearly annoyed, called Reiner's blows worthless and said Reiner could not do any real harm. In response, Reiner asked why Harold kept dodging instead of attacking himself. Anger took over Harold, and he called his opponent a useless fool. Then he moved forward so quickly that Reiner did not even have time to understand what was happening. Standing very close, Harold said he would treat him the same way he treated his sword, so next time he should think before speaking. Reiner stared in shock as his sword broke in two. Harold said that anyone who cannot even respond to a strike has no right to speak. Deep inside, Reiner felt a sharp disappointment. After so many years of training with his adventurous father, he had just lost for the first time to someone his own age. In the past, he had only ever been beaten by adults. While reflecting on his defeat, Reiner noticed Harold approaching the judge and making threats. No one at the tournament had ever dared to do that before. Harold called the judge an incompetent fool and asked why the fight was stopped when Reiner had not surrendered, since that goes against the rules. The judge explained that the defeat was clear because the opponent had lost his weapon. Still, Harold insisted and demanded a replacement sword. Without wasting time, he went to get the sword himself. The audience did not understand what was happening and began to call out excitedly. After a minute, Harold came back with a new blade while people cheered. The aristocrat offered his opponent the chance to stand up and take a weapon, if there was any will to fight left. This was the only opportunity to prove himself. Harold asked why a simple village boy needed to learn how to fight. Life could stay quiet and safe in the countryside without taking risks. Reiner said that since childhood, knights inspired him and he dreamed of becoming a noble person who could save people from danger. From a young age, always offering support to those who needed it most. When some local bullies tried to take Colette's pendant, Reiner stepped in and refused to ignore what was happening. Those boys teased Colette and bragged about selling the pendant to traveling merchants, planning to use the money for treats. Outraged by the boys' boldness, Colette tried to snatch the pendant back and even struck one of them. However, she was too young and not strong enough to stand up to the older boys. At that moment, Reiner stepped in. Ignoring any possible consequences, he demanded that the bullying of Colette stop immediately because she was younger and weaker. In that moment, she felt protected and comforted. The bullies laughed when they saw the gentle boy and started making fun of him, calling him a hero in shiny pants. They said they were tired of his silly night games. They started making fun of the future hero, calling him a weakling who only pretends to be a knight and then runs to his mother to cry. This time, Reiner promised things would be different. He wanted to prove his strength. The bullies watched for a chance, ready to pick on the kind but quiet boy again. The fight lasted only a few minutes and ended with Reiner clearly losing. Colette wiped the blood from his face while he winced in pain. She apologized for getting him involved, but he was only worried about looking too pathetic. Even after losing, his bravery remained clear. In that moment, for Colette, Reiner was the best kind of hero. She believed in his. Despite the pain, a sense of pride grew inside as he realized he had protected the girl he cared about. He promised to always stay by her side and keep her safe. He said that even if he is weak now, he will train, become stronger, and one day become a true knight who helps people in trouble. Colette truly believed in the good intentions of her best friend and wished him success. At that moment, she decided to give him her pendant as a symbol of bravery. Surprised, Reiner did not understand why she did that, but Colette explained that the charm belonged to him now, as a promise to follow his dream and become a guardian. She also promised to always stay by his side and support him on his journey to becoming a knight. At that moment, Reiner seemed to grow up. He truly started to believe in himself. Now, after many years, he found himself in the arena facing his toughest opponent, determined to grow stronger and protect others. Harold just smiled, wondering why this so-called loser saw himself as a hero. By now, Reiner no longer looked like a naive village boy. Strength flowed through him, and he was ready to show it to Harold. The blade in his hand lit up with magical fire, and for the first time his body felt truly light. Meeting Harold unlocked his heroic strength. Energy surged inside him, and, filled with anger, he charged forward seeking revenge. The powerful blows of the sword made the crowd fall silent. No one had witnessed a fight like this at the tournament before. For the first time, Colette saw her friend so strong and fiercely determined. Harold felt pleased because his words had an effect, and the future hero finally woke up. Now it was hard to hold him back. Raynor attacked non-stop and even started to block the aristocrat's strikes. Suddenly, after a strong burst of energy, the boy felt weak. His vision blurred and he stepped back, losing his balance. Losing support, Raynor noticed his body felt suddenly heavy, as if filled with lead. In the next moment, he understood everything. He had returned to his normal state. This meant only one thing. His strength had run out. That was not surprising, since until today, he had not even realized the power that slept inside him. Despite feeling suddenly weak, Raynor felt satisfied because he had lived up to the expectations Colette once placed on him, along with the pendant she gave him. Still, he admitted that he was powerless against Harold for now. Suddenly, the chain holding the pendant broke, and the decoration fell to the ground with a gentle chime. Raynor remembered his best friend's smile and her promise to always watch over his journey toward his dream. These memories gave him new strength. The arena filled with magical light, and the boy stood ready for battle. The time to fear had arrived. Raynor gathered all his strength for the final, most powerful strike of his life, determined to prove that he could protect both himself and the one he loves. Fire magic burst from his sword. Raynor challenged the arrogant nobleman and told him to try and stop it if he had the strength. Still, Harold stood his ground. He cast the Nemesis blade spell against the fire. Lightning filled the arena as the two forces clashed in a deadly battle. In a matter of seconds, powerful magical forces collided, causing an explosion so intense that everyone in the crowd shielded their eyes, while the arena itself shook from the impact. When the dust settled, both rivals were still standing, but Raynor had used up too much strength and his legs could no longer support him. Harold stepped in to help, keeping the boy from falling. I called him a fool, saying he could have used this power from the start. In response, Raynor could barely whisper that Harold was a cruel person and asked to be put down. The aristocrat felt surprised, not expecting Raynor to activate the bravery mode in such a situation. This mode is a special state that greatly increases strength and defense for 4 turns. Harold did not expect Raynor to meet all the requirements to activate it, but Raynor did it twice in just 1 minute. This could only mean one thing. The simple country boy had become a real hero. Harold admitted he was too quick to judge when he called him a disappointment. The pendant was placed in Raynor's hand along with quiet words that they would have to meet again in the future, this time in a deadly battle that would decide the fate of the world. Harold was announced as the winner, and Kaido, who had been watching the fight closely, realized that this young man had surpassed all his expectations. As the audience hurried to the exit, Colette pushed her way through the crowd, excited to reach her friend. She even stumbled once before finally making it to him. When Harold appeared, the girl was surprised and unsure how to respond. He finally broke the silence and asked why she had given him the pendant. The jewelry was meant for Raynor. She was reminded that long ago she had promised to give it to the one who would become her protector. Out of all the possible choices, she picked the least talented country boy. Yet Colette did not give up. She firmly said that she trusts her friend. Raynor is strong and will do everything to protect her. Harold just smiled and suggested enjoying the weak protection, saying that a guy like Raynor is perfect for a shy girl. Colette became upset and asked why he was saying such terrible things and accusing her without reason. After a short pause, Harold said that maybe she had already learned what it feels like to be weak and helpless around those who are stronger, even if she was just a child back then. The harsh words hurt Colette deeply, but she held back her tears, wiped her face, and went to find her best friend, Raynor. She found him in the hospital room. He had recovered after a tough defeat. Smiling again, she immediately asked how he was feeling. Paulette asked if he truly wanted to protect her for his whole life, or if his feelings had changed. Raynor became upset and promised that he would always stay by her side, saying that losing would not change anything. Hearing those words, Colette felt encouraged and asked not to be seen as weak because of losing to Mr. Harold, believing she would win next time. Still, Raynor asked with interest how she knew Harold so well if they had never met before, and he used a different name during the tournament. Colette chose to tell the truth and explained how the Stokes family heir saved her and her mother. She received the Order of the Night pendant from him, which she later gave to Rainer. The young man felt surprised to learn he had to fight an aristocrat. Right away, something seemed different about Harold, especially his impressive strength. Rainer remembered that he was strict, and, in the end, gave two pieces of advice. Either give up the dream of becoming a knight, or dedicate everything to it and never lose, even if it costs your life. Colette felt sad, thinking that Rainer was very upset about it. Rainer explained that Harold's words did not sound like criticism, but more like encouragement. The girl didn't fully understand what had happened, but the changes in her friend surprised her. Now, Rainer wanted only one thing: to surpass Harold. The pain continued, so Colette called the doctor and Mr. Orbel. She told Rainer to rest and not to worry, since he had already done everything he could. Left alone in the room, Colette felt sure that her friend was already strong and would become even stronger in the future. Meanwhile, on the city street, Kaido met Harold and Itsuki. With a sly smile, he invited the aristocrat to join the city order. Feeling responsible for young Harold, Itsuki stepped forward and asked for his name. Kaido only gave a sly smile and introduced himself as a knight of the Order of Life. It was hard to believe, so Itsuki stayed cautious. Then Kaido asked him not to judge by appearances because he was a true and brave knight. Next, the invitation to join the Order of the Knight was offered to Harold again, along with praise for his performance in battle, which was called the most impressive display in recent times and recognized as a talent that should not be wasted. All of this started to annoy Harold. But what surprised him most was how Kaido even found out about his participation in the tournament, since his real name was never made public. Kaido proved to be very clever, and pointed out that Harold gave himself away when he mentioned that street drunks were just a warm-up. This meant Harold was actually preparing for something much bigger. Harold immediately forbade anyone from calling him by his tournament name, warned Kaido to keep quiet about it, and told him to remember his real name because that was what truly mattered in the game. Itsuki felt let down because he thought the made-up name would appeal to the town. Harold's reaction was even stronger as he threatened to break the neck of whoever came up with it. Kaido simply showed surprise at how intense the emotions were. Sliggy suggested everyone calm down and go to a quiet place where they could talk and have a relaxing drink, since standing outside was not the best idea. While sitting at the table, Kaido asked Harold why he made up a fake name and lied to his parents to enter the tournament. Harold explained that he just wanted to test his own abilities. Kaido smiled and refused, since his last opponent, a red-haired boy with a sword, was very strong and also received an invitation to join the Knight Order. Kaido's words angered the young noble, but he quickly asked not to take offense, explaining that Harold had disappeared on his own, which meant they had to find a new candidate. He shared the story of finding Rainer in the hospital. Rainer agreed right away to become a knight. Observing Harold's reaction, Kaido realized how much he admired his only worthy rival. Watching the fight, Kaido thought that Harold seemed to be training Rainer on purpose, while Rainer tried to copy his style and repeat his moves. At first, it seemed like Harold was just toying with his opponent. He held back his speed, took hits on purpose, and blocked or dodged each attack with a hint of amusement. This strategy cornered his opponent and forced them to reveal hidden strength. Only Harold understood why he chose this approach. Itsuki wanted to know how Kaido planned to get Harold into the order since Harold was only 13, and the minimum age for joining was 16. Kaido replied that there are always exceptions, and mentioned an acquaintance named Vincent, who became a knight at the age of 4. Following the rules had always been a priority for Itsuki, so accepting this kind of exception was difficult for him. Kaido explained that only those with real talent are given special treatment. Turning to Harold again, Kaido explained that joining the order would give him a chance to fight evil, protect justice, and take on important missions. Harold replied in a cold tone that he sees himself as the embodiment of evil and does not believe in the ideals of the order. However, he is willing to accept the offer to pursue his own goal. Itsuki still did not see the point of agreeing if the parents would say no. Harold explained that members of the order travel on dangerous missions, which gives them a chance to develop their skills. There will be no problems with the parents. The father serves in the army and once considered joining the order himself. The order holds higher prestige than the army, since it is led by the king, which would raise the family's status. Itsuki guessed that Harold was doing this for his family, but Harold shook off the idea, saying he lives only for himself and follows his own desires. Returning home, he surprised his father by announcing that he had joined the order, explaining that he had come across some drunkards by chance and his talents were noticed, leading to an invitation to start a new life. As expected, the parents reacted well to the news. They called him the pride of the Stokes family and even decided to organize a real celebration. After talking with his parents, Harold met with Norman and Jake to discuss their plans. He shared that he would be leaving for the capital in a week and that farming responsibilities would need to be transferred to Tassac. Zen tried to ask a few questions, but Harold did not let him speak. Norman and Jake decided to stay in touch by sending letters and explained it would take a while since the capital is far away. Harold said it was not a big deal, but in case of an urgent need to contact him, people should reach out to the Sumaragi family, whom he would notify in advance. Zen reacted with frustration after hearing this. He understood that Knights of the Order often traveled to dangerous and remote places. Harold, however, saw no issue with it. Still, Zen insisted that Harold was too important to risk in this way. If something happened to Harold during a mission, the consequences for the rest of them could be serious. Harold interrupted sharply and called him a fool, asking why he never worried when Harold risked his own life fighting monsters. After all, he was still alive. Zen noted that hunting monsters is not the same as being a knight. Becoming a knight is much more dangerous. In response, Harold quickly scolded him and told him to stop complaining. With a mocking tone, suggested Zen go on the dangerous mission himself if he wanted to save his precious master. As expected, he refused. Harold ended the conversation and suggested everyone get back to work. Norman and Jake tried to calm Zen down while Harold stayed quiet. Even though Zen lost his temper, there was truth in what he said. Harold silently admitted this to himself, but could not let go of his image as a calm and distant aristocrat. According to the game's story, Harold was supposed to join the order at 16. Even before that, he was already training for dangerous journeys and learning how to fight monsters. So, all he really did was speed things up. Still, thinking about why the character even needs the order makes it hard to find a clear reason. Although the order stands for strength and honor, it is possible that the original Harold simply wanted to prove his power and gain respect. In the game, the real Harold never admitted defeat. After losing to Raynor twice, he wanted more, but in the end, the weight of justice broke him and he destroyed himself. In other words, he spent his whole life fighting, never wanting to use his strength for good. Jealousy and vanity guided him, and he hid his weakness behind a mask of power. Soon, a servant entered the room and said that preparations for the banquet were finished. Harold decided it was time to visit his family home for the first time. A few days after the banquet celebrating his entry into the order, Harold had already said goodbye to his overbearing parents. He sensed that this might be the last time he would see them. During his journey, he reached the capital Amagil and was amazed by its size. The city stood on a massive hill, with buildings becoming more impressive the higher they were built. This was a sight he had never seen before, with airships crossing the sky and wealth and luxury showing on every building front. It was hard to imagine how much it all must have cost. After reaching his destination, Harold chose to wait for a while. Soon, an old friend greeted him. Kaido noted with surprise that they met sooner than he expected. Harold quickly made it clear. He was not there for a social visit, but to join the order. Kaido kept smiling and making jokes, claiming he always kept his promises. However, Harold understood what kind of person he was dealing with, and did not trust a single word from this cunning man. On the way to the Order of the Night, Kaido kept praising Harold's fighting skills, and was surprised to meet someone so talented again. The young noble guessed that Kaido was once again referring to the remarkable boy knight who had joined the order at just 14, the same one he had mentioned before. Kaido was surprised that Harold had never heard of this famous person, since people talked about him not only in the capital, but also far beyond its borders. This legend was Vincent Van Westport, the current head of the Holy Order of Knights. His name was known to everyone. Meanwhile, Vincent sat in his office, feeling tired from the endless paperwork. So he decided to take a walk and ask Shannon if there was group training scheduled for today. The responsible assistant quickly said there were no training sessions planned for today. Vincent did not understand why Kaido's group had gathered in the yard. At that moment, the loud and usually cheerful Kaido burst into the office, greeted the head of the order, and Vincent calmly asked about the commotion downstairs. Right away, he shared that he wanted to hold an entrance exam for a promising newcomer, so his whole team gathered together. Vincent allowed it but told everyone to avoid any trouble. Kaido just laughed and said he could not make any promises because it all depended on the newcomer. Still, he assured Vincent that watching the event would be interesting for him. The loud knight's words left the order's leaders puzzled, but they became curious about the mysterious new recruit. Shannon simply muttered that Kaido was being loud as usual. Vincent had gotten used to Kaido's unpredictable ways. Kaido was always independent and outspoken. As long as there were no complaints, everything stayed under control. Shannon agreed, but still thought the commander of the order was too lenient with this unpredictable knight. Vincent understood all of this, but he just sighed quietly. Vincent remembered the time he brought Kaido to the order, to that place Kaido always disliked. Vincent often felt like an outsider in the order himself. While waiting for the test to begin, Harold thought about Captain Vincent, but chose not to compare himself to someone who succeeded so much at a young age. In the capital, Vincent was known as a serious and legendary figure. However, just 4 years after the battle in the Beltus Forest, the order would lose its power, and Kaido would leave his position, having grown to resent everyone who served the law. In the future, events will end in tragedy. Vincent, a brave leader of the knights, will lose his life at the hands of his closest friend, caught up in a web of deceit. Meanwhile, Harold was getting tired of waiting while Kaido wandered somewhere. The other knights noticed the young man and started asking him what he was doing there. Harold told them in an irritated voice to leave him alone, but they could not resist making jokes and asking who he was and why he seemed so angry. At last, Kaido arrived and ended the pointless questions. The knights quickly lined up to greet their commander, while Harold shared his frustration about Kaido being missing. But Kaido did not explain where he had really been, and only mentioned some important business. Harold guessed that he might have gone to the bathroom. The curious knights started asking who the commander had brought with him. Despite Kaido's high standing, the knights mocked Harold and called him the commander's illegitimate son. He told them to calm down as the young noble was already filled with anger. Kaido explained that he brought the boy who will be their opponent, as this boy is about to become a candidate to join the order. Both Harold and the knights were surprised to see that the promising newcomer was just a young boy. He looked much younger than anyone had expected. However, the commander fully trusted the young aristocrat's abilities and advised others not to underestimate him. Harold himself did not expect there would be a test, as he believed he had already been accepted. He did not see what else he could do to prove his skills since he had already shown everything at the tournament. Facing a few soldiers did not scare him. Kaido ordered him to fight with full strength. Next, a reward was promised. Anyone who defeats Harold will get a letter of recommendation and a chance for a promotion. This generous offer caught everyone's interest. The knights sensed something suspicious. Then Kaido reminded everyone of who they are and ordered them not to be afraid of a 13-year-old boy. It was time to prove their worth. Kaido's words stirred both doubt and excitement. He encouraged them to prove their strength and make the boy cry and run to his mother. In response, Harold glared with anger. In the end, Kaido's subordinates accepted the challenge. Harold noticed their eyes change, showing that the commander's speech really inspired them. The young man felt confident in his abilities. He decided to take this opportunity to challenge experienced opponents, believing the tournament had not shown his true potential. Kaido wished Harold good luck and told him not to ruin his reputation since Kaido was the one who brought him here. But the young aristocrat just called the commander an idiot. Kaido did not hear these words, and Harold thanked him for the opportunity with clear annoyance. The commander missed the sarcasm and felt proud, truly believing he was giving the boy a real chance. Excitement filled Harold, a feeling he last experienced fighting Itsuki. Battles with monsters never brought him joy. Only strong opponents truly sparked his interest. Harold's real body was eager for a fight, and right now he felt like a true hero of the game again. He called out to the knights, inviting them to attack without holding back. One of the knights asked Kaido if the promised reward was real. The commander confirmed that only those who defeat the newcomer will receive a promotion and special privileges. The first opponent apologized to Harold and explained that he could not miss such an opportunity. Harold would have to accept defeat and realize how harsh the world can be. Harold called him a pathetic fool and promised to thank him when he crawled back into the room, licking his wounds. Meanwhile, Kaido stepped onto the balcony and ordered everyone to stop fighting each other. He then gave the signal to begin. Without waiting, the first opponent rushed forward, swinging a heavy sword. Harold stayed calm. At the right moment, he blocked the attack, stepped to the side, and launched a strong counterattack, forcing the knight to back away. The quick victory surprised everyone, including Kaido himself. No one expected Harold to defeat the experienced warrior with a single blow. In his thoughts, Harold simply advised Kaido to treat him with more respect. Kaido tried to wake the knight, but could not. Worried about his life, Kaido quickly ordered someone to call a doctor. Meanwhile, Harold called for the next brave person to step forward for their turn. The next opponent was also an experienced knight, but much more cautious, managing to withstand the young aristocrat's initial attacks. The warrior moved fast, but his wide swings could not keep up with Harold, who showed remarkable agility and shifted the fight to a new level. Watching the fight, Kaido was impressed. Even his adult knights in armor did not have such speed and agility. Meanwhile, Harold stayed calm and challenged his opponent, asking if that was the best the famous Knights of the Order could do. These words deeply affected the warrior. Dropping his guard, the man rushed forward, hoping to quickly silence the bold young man. But this was only part of a carefully thought-out plan. While watching the enemy, Harold remembered fighting monsters and realized he never expected humans to move so predictably. Most people adjust to new situations, but this knight behaved just like a character straight out of a typical computer game. In the story of Brave Hearts, this opponent was a typical knight from the middle ranks, and the heroes never had trouble dealing with knights like him. After blocking a few more attacks, Harold thought with a smirk that this so-called tough knight turned out to be a miserable failure, unable to stand up to an ordinary guy. That smug smile made his opponent even more irritated. Harold kept belittling him on purpose, and soon even the other knights started to feel the tension. Suddenly, the adult warrior activated a magic circle. Harold recognized right away that this was water magic, a common attack used by fighters of his class. The knight did know how to use the water strike, but this move was very predictable and brought nothing new. The young aristocrat quickly used his magic to block the water attack, surprising his opponent who did not expect this from him. Harold used a simple rule. By using the same element as his opponent, he could block their spell. Predicting the right magic ahead of time, however, is not easy for everyone. The angry knight decided it was just a mistake and cast the next spell, this time using fire, hoping to surprise the young man. After the second block, it became clear that this was no accident. Confusion grew over how someone so young could predict every move. Harold called him a pathetic loser and challenged him to prove himself as a real fighter by showing something original instead of just copying the coach. Filled with rage, the knight tried to attack with all his strength, but could not keep up with his opponent's movements. Harold dodged smoothly and landed a powerful blow, knocking his enemy to the ground. Kaido felt excited because he saw Harold as the next Vincent, just as young and talented. But Harold, already bored, suggested that the elite group attack him all at once, since fighting them one by one was no longer interesting. Vincent and his assistant Shan watched the young man with amazement. The head of the order could hardly believe they were looking at such a skilled fighter. Vincent noticed the boy blocked every attack with perfect timing and quickly switched to counterattacks, as if he already knew what his opponents would do next. Knights had their own special way of fighting, so it was hard to understand how an ordinary boy could have learned it without ever meeting anyone from the order. After facing several knights, mastering every technique was just not possible. A sense of worry came over Vincent, and he wanted to learn more. The captain of the Sacred Order suggested that the boy might be a spy from an enemy group, planning to destroy the order from within. For this reason, Vincent asked Shauna to collect all the information about battles from the past 10 years, including even the smallest skirmishes. Shauna warned that this kind of analysis would take a lot of time, but Vincent decided to handle the big battles himself and give the smaller ones to her. Despite everything, The captain still hoped to be wrong about the newcomer, who might not be an enemy after all, but could actually be a real talent. For several days, Kido eagerly showed Harold around the order, apologized for the delay, and reminded him about the dormitory fee, which Harold had already paid. Then Harold was shown to the main dining hall, where regular meals were free, but special dishes cost extra. Nearby stood the training hall and the lounge, and further along were the meeting room and the private apartments of the captain and the deputy of the Holy Order. Kido also showed the newcomer the large barracks, explaining that the second floor was for the veterans, and Harold should remember this so he would not get confused. At last, the commander brought him into the room, introduced him to the others, and told everyone to treat Harold as a full member of the 92nd Unit. The young man stayed calm and distant, asking his new allies to let him handle upcoming challenges and battles without interference. The other boys just looked at him with surprise, not understanding the newcomer's tone right away. At that moment, a loud girl arrived and reminded the lieutenant about the forgotten uniform. The lieutenant apologized and admitted his carelessness, noting that the girl had to work even during her break. He then scolded the veterans and ordered them to go upstairs to their floor immediately. The veterans explained they were curious and wanted to see what was happening. They had no bad intentions and left right away. Kido showed no surprise, and the knights praised Harold for his excellent exam, even though they had not been there themselves. With a bold look, he replied that they should kneel if they truly believed he was better, which made the others angry. The knights suggested he show more humility around the veterans, but the aristocrat said he would not respect anyone who had not earned it. The girl was shocked by his boldness. Lieutenant Kido asked everyone to stay calm and explained that he understood the newcomer's reaction. But first, each person needed to introduce themselves as is the custom in the squad. The tall knight named Robinson spoke first. After him, a shorter guy named Shido introduced himself, and then an upset girl gave her name as Irene. In the game, these characters had almost no description, just a few words appeared on the screen. Shido asked if Harold was having any trouble, and Irene suggested showing more respect. However, the young man boldly replied that he did not plan to flatter anyone just because they were a bit older. Irene exploded, but Kido quickly pulled her aside. Robinson and Shido chose not to argue with the confident young man and wished him good luck. At the same time, Harold paused in thought. He already knew that these three would die in the future. Their fate in the game was already determined. A few years later, Kido will leave the order and form a new gang called the Guild Gang. This will happen after the tragedy in the Beltus Forest. The whole team will die in the trap, and only Kido will survive. No longer wanting to serve the law, he will leave the order for good. During one event in the game, Kido remembers the names of his fallen friends, including Robinson, Shido, and Irene. Harold hesitated because the battle was set for next year, and he realized there was not enough time for him to join the unit. He understood he would not be able to take part. The boy looked for another way to help, but saving people he barely knew seemed impossible. Most likely they would not survive. The only thing that could help was knowing exactly where the tragedy would happen. With Clara, though, her story remained clear in his memory. The most important thing is that if these three had survived, Kido would not have left the order. Without his group, many storylines in the game could not have happened. Harold realized that interfering with the creation of the Gang Guild could ruin the main storyline. That would lead to disaster. The choice was to either accept the loss of the three knights or change the original story and save Robinson, Shido, and Irene. In a few days, Shauna finished a detailed report about the battles, just as Vincent had asked. The captain thanked her and kept working on Harold's case. Later, Vincent showed Kido the list of knights who were going on the mission, and Harold immediately wanted to join them. The lieutenant was surprised and wondered why this information was needed. Vincent explained he personally wanted Harold to join the Cairo squad. Kido did not want to take the newcomer because he had not completed training or taken the oath. Vincent suggested a simpler plan, an intensive 2-week course that would make Harold a full knight. The lieutenant agreed but warned that the other knights would not be happy about it. Vincent had expected this, knowing that Harold would be met with suspicion because of his age. The commander explained that the young aristocrat has extraordinary strength, so an exception to the rules can be made to speed up his acceptance into the order. In the end, Kido accepted this difficult decision and promised to do his best to help promote Harold, as long as there was a real reason for it. Vincent felt surprised at how quickly Kido agreed. Even so, the lieutenant kept grumbling, still unsure why he needed to make such an effort for a new recruit, even one as talented as this. Vincent had already studied his file closely and asked Kido for his thoughts on the young man's combat skills. After a short pause, Kido admitted that from the very first meeting he was impressed, as he had not expected the young man to fight with such skill. Vincent felt the same way and decided to find out who had taught Harold these techniques and why he was there. Vincent also came from an aristocratic family, the Grants. The captain also shared reports claiming that Harold had brutally killed his girlfriend's family, and it cannot be ignored. Kido advised treating such rumors with caution. Still, the commander ordered that Harold be kept under close watch to make sure he acted with honor and kindness. Only Kido could be trusted with this responsibility. Naturally, the lieutenant was not eager to become a supervisor and disrupt his calm life. This responsibility seemed too harsh for a regular newcomer. Vincent explained that trusting blindly can be dangerous because even the order once betrayed the king's own guard. Once, this person spied on other kingdoms and ended his own life as soon as he was discovered. No one ever found out who he worked for or what information he managed to pass on. That is why every talented newcomer should be treated with extra caution. Vincent said he fully trusts Kido and wants Harold to become a good person, but believes they need to be careful. The lieutenant agreed. Despite holding high positions, Vincent and Kido stayed friends. Kido approached things casually, while the captain acted with responsibility and often suggested his friend should be more serious at times. The lieutenant just grumbled like a child who would rather complain than listen to advice from parents. As Kido left to take care of his business, Vincent silently thanked him. Despite his carefree nature, Kido was someone Vincent could trust. Meanwhile, young aristocrat Harold was on a mission, spending hours moving a large amount of clothing by hand. The day in the order started at 5 in the morning with 2 hours of training. After that came breakfast, cleaning, and doing laundry. In the afternoon, there was another training session. A week had passed since joining the order. Although Harold did not feel tired, he was annoyed by the lack of time for his own training. While running his usual errands, Harold came across 3 bold young men who wanted to teach him respect for his elders. They promised to show him who was in charge. The young aristocrat showed no fear and called them fools who were disgracing Vincent and just wasting time. This angered the boys. But Harold suddenly disappeared so quickly they did not even notice. The 3, still in shock, only managed to see him running away as fast as he could. Ignoring their shouts to stop, Harold told them off and wondered how the captain could allow this kind of behavior in the order. When Harold entered the dining hall, dismissive looks followed him. He chose to keep to himself and avoid trouble. Robinson, the only one willing to talk, came over to him. Robinson arrived with his friends Shido and Isla, and they all decided to have lunch with Harold. The boy felt uneasy because their unexpected visit made him a bit nervous. Robinson explained that they noticed Harold eating alone and decided to join him, since senior knights should look after newcomers. Harold advised Robinson to take better care of himself, noting that apart from his 2 friends, he does not talk to anyone else. These words made the giant feel sad. Shido explained that the other boys avoid Robinson because they are afraid of his size. Even Isla brought him a napkin, and Harold was surprised by this act of kindness. He reassured Robinson, saying that if everyone around was so afraid, it was better for them to be cautious. Without realizing it, he spoke like an ordinary person for the first time. Harold's words touched Robinson, who thanked him sincerely for the support. At that moment, Harold realized there was another admirer who seemed ready to confess his feelings. Still, Isla remained upset. Shido explained that he understood Harold was used to having servants, but that was not the case here. Now it made sense to ask friends for help instead. Harold suggested not to get too carried away with promises since their group was a bit too lively, but Shido just laughed and said that one day they would all be friends. Isla also decided to share her opinion, saying that there is no need to act so arrogant because he is not very pleasant to talk to. If he keeps this up, making friends will be difficult for him. Shido quickly responded, reminding Ayla that she herself doesn't like talking to people. Ayla got angry and threw a fork at him. Harold simply explained that he is not interested in romance. At that moment, the lieutenant walked over and, after hearing part of the conversation, said the young man who already had a fiancée did not need any new admirers. The people around were stunned. Angry, Harold shouted at Shido, demanding to know who was spreading rumors about his private life. Shido, upset, pressed him for details. With a smile, Kaido started talking about a magical girl, the picture of elegance. Harold told him to be quiet and explain how he knew about her. Shido could not hold back anymore and grabbed Harold by the hand, demanding the whole truth. Everyone was surprised that the young aristocrat was involved in such a serious relationship. Isla felt upset while Robinson remained silent. After finishing his special operation, the lieutenant enjoyed seeing Harold's anger, told everyone not to argue, and left the dining room. However, Harold had no intention of letting him go that easily. 2 weeks after joining, Harold was suddenly called for a final exam. This seemed suspicious to him, but the head instructor explained that Harold was too strong, so training would not help him. The young man just smiled quietly because he had already realized this during the entrance exam. He was glad the instructor finally understood it too. Despite Harold's boldness, the mentor did not get angry and simply promised to pray for his success. However, the young aristocrat quietly dismissed the offer, relying only on his own abilities. Stepping out of the office, Harold let out a relieved sigh. In truth, anxiety weighed on him. His arrogance had created many enemies, and it was impossible to predict if someone would ever try to harm him while he slept. Despite his skill and experience in defeating monsters, Harold still could not understand why the final exam was suddenly announced. Passing it, however, would let him act on his own and finally put an end to constant supervision. The next day, it was time for the exam, and Harold felt annoyed that the smiling Lieutenant Kido would be accompanying him. Lieutenant Sacris led the exam, joined by Junior Lieutenant Selim and Knight Lucas. Everyone was expected to give their best. Harold received the task of traveling into the wilderness with Kido's squad, where monsters marked on the map awaited him. The mission was to eliminate them all. With no questions asked, the young man was told to prepare the supplies. Cheerful Kido suggested getting started right away and doing everything properly. The idea of hunting together with this clumsy group annoyed Harold, since he felt he could complete the mission on his own. In the end, the young man tried to stay calm and not dwell on his thoughts. A knight asked if the newcomer was all right, since walking in armor could be exhausting. Harold, true to his style, said the only thing he might need was a healer if the heat made him sick. Kido stayed close the whole time and seemed to know a lot about previous missions. Harold wanted to know how Kido had this information since his knowledge seemed suspicious, but the lieutenant pretended not to understand and asked Harold not to treat him like a fool. Kido teased Harold on purpose and seemed to enjoy it when Harold insulted him. Suddenly, 2 giant monsters appeared ahead. The massive trees of wrath, despite their size, moved quickly and surprised the knights by appearing in this area. The commander quickly assessed the situation and ordered everyone to get ready for battle, leaving the newcomer behind. This only made Harold angrier. The commander explained that these monsters were not supposed to be here, so the exam would need to be postponed. However, Harold was upset because he believed unexpected situations should be part of the test. He said he could handle the monsters on his own and was ready to continue the test. The commander agreed and told Kido to take on the second beast. The knights agreed and smiled as they patted Harold on the back, telling him not to worry too much and to stay careful. If anything went wrong, they suggested he should run. Everyone pretended to care, and suddenly Harold felt grateful. Now, fully aware of his responsibility, he wanted to deal with the monster as quickly as possible because he could feel the eyes watching him. Moving carefully, Harold noticed the monster suddenly lash out with its branches. At the last moment, he managed to dodge to the side. One of the knights shouted a warning to stay alert and dodge faster. Still, even with the danger, Harold felt confident that everything was going as planned. After carefully finding the right moment, the young man used the Phoenix Strike spell and stopped the deadly breath of the monster with one precise move. The seasoned knight stood amazed by Harold's courage and quick thinking. Meanwhile, Harold took advantage of the moment and climbed up a broken branch to get closer to the monster. Once close enough, A magic blade of fire appeared in his hand, and within seconds, flames covered the attacking tree. This impressive victory proved his strength. After the fight, the group moved on through the desert, defeating any monsters they met along the way. That evening, the knights stopped to rest. They decided to have a drink to celebrate their successful mission and Harold's well-prepared exam, which only made the newcomer more upset. As expected, the knights liked to find a reason for a drink. Harold pointed out that even though the monsters had been defeated, the test was not over until they returned to the city. Still, everyone kept going. One of the knights promised a real celebration when they returned. Harold stayed quiet and agreed because the decision had already been made for him. While the knights took a break, Lieutenant Sacris worked on his report. He highlighted Harold's strength, his quick adjustment to the Keto squad, and his ability to work well with others. Sacris focused on the moment when Harold defeated the ENT by himself, using both agility and magic. Not even the lieutenant could have done the same. There was no doubt that Harold could become the strongest knight in the history of the Order. His arrogance was not a weakness, but a sign of confidence in his own abilities. Still, Sacris believed that behind the boy's boldness there was something else. He spent time with people he did not really like, so deep down he was actually different. The report from the lieutenant gave a detailed account of Harold's relationships with other team members and concluded that there was no reason to give him a negative evaluation. The next day, the group set off for the capital. Sacris felt sure they would reach the city before sunset, but he told everyone to stay alert. Suddenly, Lucas noticed something unusual. The dark cloud appeared first in the distance. The group stopped and watched as it slowly moved closer. The knights discussed the strange red smoke that seemed to move along a clear path. They thought it might be a sign that a monster was coming. A few minutes passed and there was still no danger. Still, some people thought this might mean something important or even something risky. Sacris asked Harold if he knew about this phenomenon. Harold just advised staying alert because this cloud might be able to destroy everything in its path. The lieutenant decided to investigate the cloud alone and told the other knights to stay where they were and stay alert. Suddenly, the cloud rushed forward and quickly closed in on Sacris. Harold shouted, telling everyone to get down right away. But the commander hesitated. Only Harold's quick reaction managed to save the lieutenant's life. Keto was in shock and just watched from the side without getting involved. No one understood what was happening, but it was clear that the red cloud was acting aggressively. Only Harold's actions saved Sacris from death. The stunned lieutenant thanked Harold for saving him, but Harold just waved it off and told him to focus more on keeping the squad safe. In the next moment, the dark cloud split into several parts, surrounding the group. No one understood what they were facing, but everyone was ready to fight. Harold rushed at the first enemy and struck with his sword, but the enemy recovered instantly. Physical attacks had no effect at all. The knights were surprised because their regular weapons had no effect. Their attacks did not cause any harm, and the enemy was much too strong. Young Knight Ayla felt scared and uncertain about what to do. Robinson suggested falling back, but that made no sense since everyone was already trapped. The lieutenant realized staying calm was essential. Harold called everyone cowards for just talking instead of acting, and ordered them to move immediately if they did not want to die. He suggested using the Thunder Spear spell. Even powerful magic failed to wipe out the enemy completely, as the enemy struck back with an even stronger blaze. The other knights finally realized they could not rely on just one newcomer. They gathered their strength and began to prepare for a battle with a dangerous enemy. Keto used a water spell, and to his surprise, it worked, and one of the monsters was defeated. Sacris followed up with another water magic attack. The effect did not last long because the enemy slowed down for a while, but soon returned to normal. Harold realized that each one was vulnerable to a different element. The lieutenant praised his guess, but Harold interrupted, called him a fool, and suggested using magic more often instead of talking. Keto followed the advice and started preparing a new attack, while Sacris told Lucas to cast protective spells on the whole squad just in case. Keto cast an air spell, Sacris released a pillar of fire, and Harold finished the enemy with Thunder Spear magic. A powerful combined attack scattered the last of the enemy creatures. Even after the victory, the knights stayed alert, not convinced that the battle was truly over. Harold breathed out in relief. No more enemies appeared. The lieutenant checked on the soldiers and saw that everyone was unharmed, which brought him relief. He realized that they were all still alive only because of Harold. Without the young man, the group would have suffered losses, and he himself would have been the first to die. The lieutenant remembered Harold's words and felt guilty for ignoring the warning and not fulfilling his responsibility. After a pause, Sacris bowed to the recruit, thanked him for his help, and apologized for putting him in danger. Harold replied calmly, saying that it is impossible to predict everything, but being more careful is still important. The lieutenant remembered these words and decided to trust the young man completely. The commanders had never seen creatures like these before, so they decided to check the old archives. Harold pretended he knew nothing as well, and soon everyone calmed down. Harold understood well that the group had encountered a terrible force called the Cloud of Gloom. This was the result of a dark plan aimed at wiping an entire continent from the face of the earth. The reason for what happened now confused him. Clouds like these were supposed to appear closer to the middle of the game's story, not during the prologue. It did not matter now when it began. The creature had always been part of this world. The justice plan only woke it up. Harold realized there was very little time left for him. Things started happening much earlier than expected. Harold could not figure out when the story went off script. Now everything felt unpredictable. It seems he relaxed too much and missed an important detail. In the original story, one of the main character's companions created the asthma elixir. Later, the Sumaragi family improved it and made it available to everyone. Joining the order was an important step, but soon it was clear that the game was missing many details. It seemed likely that Harold was actually changing how things turned out. Staying calm was important. These were only assumptions. There was no need to panic yet. First, it was necessary to find out if the justice plan had really been set in motion. The final boss of the game, Justice Fruend, was a scientist known by some as a genius. For his experiments, he was willing to destroy the entire world. Harold paused to consider how to predict the outcome of this wild plan in advance. Just then, Kido asked what had captured his attention so much. The commander agreed the monsters were truly incredible, but pointed out that they won because of Harold. Then he asked if Harold had seen creatures like that before. Harold pretended not to understand, but Kido advised him not to joke around. The young man had quickly spotted the enemy's weaknesses, and that is only possible for someone with real experience. Harold explained it as a simple coincidence, and said that thinking is more important than swinging a sword in a fight. Kido agreed and praised his intuition. The remark made Harold laugh, and as usual he insulted the commander by calling him a rat and reminding him that nobles have more talent in one drop of their blood than commoners like Kido. Kido just laughed and called Harold a troublemaker who likes to tease people and acts older than he really is. Harold tried to break free from Kido's hug, throwing out more insults, which annoyed the commander. Kido explained calmly that he only wanted to encourage the young man. In his mind, Harold blamed Kido for the torn ear and could not understand how he could act that way. Still, everyone just saw him as a talented boy. Harold could not understand how Kido knew so much about him. So far, Kido had only talked about Erica, which made the other knights even more suspicious. Despite seeming carefree, Kido did not believe in luck. The ability to fight an unknown enemy could not be just a coincidence. After returning from the exam, Harold set aside some time for personal training and decided to start improving his skills right away. Despite putting in a lot of effort, breaking his own records in jumping and speed just did not happen. Eventually, he fell and became frustrated with himself. Exhaustion pressed down on Harold, so he stopped to catch his breath. Even the simplest tasks felt difficult. Frustration set in because, at this pace, catching up to the perfect Harold from the game seemed impossible. The young aristocrat felt that time was slipping away too quickly. Still searching for a way to get close to his main adversary, Eustace, he had not yet found a chance to save his life. In the game, Eustace's laboratory was located in the capital city. According to the story, the scientist often visited the palace to give reports. Harold planned to intercept him near the city gates, but the idea immediately seemed pointless to him because he did not know what to do after the meeting. Any attempt to attack would just end with his instant death. Sneaking up on the sleeping Eustace made no sense. Only he could stop himself from his madness. No one would listen to the warnings of a child. A few minutes later, Shido arrived and asked what Harold was doing there alone. Instead of answering, Harold asked him a question in return. Shido said he understood wanting to train alone, but wondered why Harold chose such an unusual place. Harold said he did not want to attract the attention of fools, though it seemed they had already found him. Then he asked why the three of them had come here with wooden swords. The friends bowed and asked Harold to teach them fencing. The aristocrat praised them for finally understanding who they were dealing with, but added that he would not teach weaklings. Shido remembered feeling powerless during the monster attack and realized that a knight should never behave that way. That is why he wants to learn from Harold. Ayla also remembered how she just stood there, unable to do anything, while the others were fighting. At the same time, Robinson felt ashamed for being the one who suggested retreating. All three asked Harold once again to teach them how to fight monsters. Harold felt unsure of what he could offer these experienced knights, since he only relied on his knowledge of the game. Besides, he knew they were all destined to die in 1.5 years. It was difficult for him because telling them the truth was impossible. Even though Harold did not understand why he suddenly felt so emotional, a sense of gratitude grew in him, something unfamiliar. Now he wanted to find a way to save Ayla and the Kaido squad, even though he was not sure it was the right thing to do. After a brief moment of thought, Harold chose to take a risk and save the 3 kind adventurers who trusted him. To help them grow stronger, he suggested that all 3 of them attack him. However, he warned them there would be no mercy. If they wanted strength, they would have to endure pain. Anyone too weak should leave. These words angered the group of 3, and they decided to teach the confident newcomer a lesson. At the Order of Knights headquarters, all the leaders gathered in the meeting room as Vincent prepared to report on a promising new recruit. Right away, he made it clear that despite his young age, Harold has strength equal to that of an experienced lieutenant, and this has already been proven in practice. While battling an unknown monster, everyone noticed his strong leadership skills. Because of this, he was chosen to join the combat squad to grow not just through training but also in real missions. Grand Master Milstrom of the Order of the Holy Knights agreed to Vincent's plan, but admitted to having some doubts. They might be in a hurry, but Harold is still very young. Communicating with others is difficult for him, so it is better to give him more time for learning and training. Vincent respected Master Maelstrom's wisdom, but pointed out that his team could achieve much more than regular training. Master asked him to explain further. Captain Vincent remembered how, during the entrance exam, Harold completely outperformed all the examiners, and since then, many people had held a grudge against him. Reports also mentioned that Harold often provoked other students, which led to conflicts. In such circumstances, it is difficult to find knights who could turn him into an obedient soldier. The master guessed that Vincent wanted to put the newcomer in a team where he would be treated kindly. That is what happened. The captain suggested adding Harold to Kaido's team. Vincent described LT Kaido as the most open-minded commander in the order, someone known for being especially kind and caring toward his subordinates. Also, it was Kaido who brought Harold to the order, so he should continue to look after him. The fighters from his squad had already talked with the newcomer and managed to get along. Lieutenant Sacris quietly remembered seeing this during the test. The order's master shared some concern, unsure why Harold was acting so boldly, but had no intention of getting directly involved. Vincent accepted responsibility for the knight's actions, promised to punish those at fault, and assured that such conflicts would not happen again within the team. Trusting the captain, the order's master chose not to get involved directly and suggested returning to the main topic. The question was whether joining Kaido's squad would really help Harold become more disciplined and lose his aristocratic pride. Vincent asked to be heard out and confidently said this approach would help unlock the newcomer's full potential. He believed everyone would be pleased with the results. The master was surprised by how much Harold impressed Vincent and finally agreed to let him join the Kaido squad. The captain thanked him sincerely for this trust. At that moment, the Minister of War and the Royal Inspector of the Order, Harrison, entered the hall. He had already heard about the newcomer and wanted to learn more. The arrival of such an important guest surprised everyone. Vincent felt uneasy and immediately asked about the reason for the visit. Harrison sat down at the table and said he already knew the topic. He needed a report about Harold. He apologized for interrupting and explained that his task was very important. No one understood what the royal family wanted, but Vincent asked the minister to explain more, hoping the order could help. It turned out that Harrison was assigned to guard the borders. This task was not very dangerous, but required a long journey. The destination was the most remote point on. Around noon, Master Millstrom immediately objected, saying it would be too much for the city residents. He suggested sending locals instead. However, Harrison explained that the locals could no longer handle it and asked for help. Help is needed. Lately, the Beltus Forest has not been peaceful, but there are not enough border guards. Vincent was surprised because no official reports about this had arrived. Harrison looked puzzled, as if he could not understand how it happened. But Vincent knew that the Beltus Forest was home to a race from the stars. This is an ancient and small community shaped by centuries of struggle to survive. Over time, they chose isolation from the rest of the world and resisted outside cultural influences. Visiting their land was very difficult. Harrison explained that talks are ongoing with the people of the stars. No one plans to break their laws, only to meet some minor interests, so there should not be any problems. He believed the forest dwellers were not as stubborn as people said, and thought the best choice was to send that talented newcomer they had just been discussing to the meeting. Vincent asked why this was necessary, but the senior official gave several reasons. One was that Harold should not be allowed on dangerous missions. This scouting mission feels more like a casual walk with no fighting involved. Even if it lasts a while, a new recruit will have a good chance to bond with the team. Harrison described this simple mission as perfect for a beginner, saying it would help someone learn about the situation at the border. But Vincent doubted the official's honesty and felt something was off. Harrison's actions upset all the leaders of the order. None of them understood what real goals this clever and secretive man had. Master Millstrom chose not to argue with the royal official. He told everyone to stop the disagreements and said such comments were not acceptable at a formal meeting. Harrison thanked the master for his firm stance and reminded him that, as the main representative of the military leadership, he has every right to give orders and expect them to be carried out. He also mentioned that anyone who dislikes these rules should stay quiet, because saying something careless could harm the order's reputation, and then the king might have to take serious action. Next, Vincent was asked if he wanted to say anything or offer another suggestion. The captain faced a tough choice and asked for some time to think. Harrison was not interested in this. He ordered a team to be formed on the same day, as soon as an agreement with the Star Tribe was reached. This process would take at least a month, so there was still time to think. As he left the room, Harrison advised Vincent to realize what a favor he was receiving, since this was a great opportunity to show the power of the Order of Knights. A month later, Harold received a letter from Itsuki Sumaragi and had no idea what Erika's father wanted to tell him. In the end, nothing serious was going on. Old Tasuka just shared some charts about the efficiency of a new farming method and asked Harold for his opinion on its potential. After reading the letter, Harold realized how difficult talking to people had become for him, so he decided to leave all his problems for the wise Tasuki to handle. Now everyone believed that the Sumaragi family had invented the new farming method and later shared it with the Stokes family as a gesture of goodwill. Harold decided to send a reply and ask Tasuku to sign even more contracts before other powerful families stepped in and took over the unique technology. At that moment, a messenger entered the room and handed over an envelope, possibly containing the results of the final exam. This immediately caught Harold's interest. Before reading the letter, a quick thank you went to the messenger, along with a remark that even average people can be useful at times. The messenger looked disappointed, but, out of fear, left in a hurry. Meanwhile, Harold eagerly opened the envelope he had been waiting for all day. The moon shone overhead. The aristocrat was certain this was an invitation to join the knights. Still, it was clear that many people thought he was too difficult to take on such a role. Harold did not care what the other knights thought of him. His only concern was staying in the order. Now, the only thing left was to find out what the letter said. After reading it, deep disappointment and fear settled in Harold, as this news was completely unexpected. Lieutenant Kido greeted the young man with a smile, welcoming Harold as a full member of the team, meaning he would now always be with them. Shido, Robinson, and Isla welcomed the idea and promised to work together. They mentioned that their experience should earn them a bit more respect. Lieutenant Kido offered to show the newcomer his place in the barracks right away, but Harold felt so empty that he did not want to talk to anyone. Now it became clear. The uneasy feeling during the exam was right. He would have to go on a deadly mission with a squad that was doomed. The main goal now is to find a way to save Robinson, Shido, and Aila, while also staying alive. However, the other knights believed he was simply feeling anxious. Harold tried to calm down. There was still a year left before the events in the Beltus Forest. That gave him time to prepare himself and everyone else. At that moment, Lieutenant Kido happily shared some more news. The order decided to give several squads a 5-day leave, and Kido's squad was among those chosen. Shido did not believe it, and asked why the vacation was so generous, since this usually happens only before something important. Kido praised him for his quick thinking, and mentioned that after their break, they would go on a long journey, so they deserved a proper rest. Ayla immediately asked how dangerous this mission would be. The lieutenant said the task would not be hard, but the journey would take a long time. Then he asked his team if anyone knew anything about a place called Beltus Forest. He mentioned that he had never been there himself. The news hit Harold like lightning, leaving him speechless. He never expected to hear something like that. The game's events were moving too quickly for him. After moving into the shared barracks with other knights, Harold made them uneasy. The others did not trust him, and even felt a bit afraid of him. One of the boys admitted with a shaky voice that he lost confidence in himself after the exam. His friend reassured him and suggested focusing on better things instead of thinking about the past. As the conversation went on, one knight tried to encourage another, unaware that Harold was listening, even though he pretended to be asleep. Only one thing bothered him: the upcoming mission to the cursed Beltus Forest, where, according to the game's story, everyone except the lieutenant is supposed to die. In the original story, there was not much time left before this event. The battle between the Order of Knights and the Star Tribe was meant to be the last for this squad. Because of the plots by Imperial spies, a conflict will erupt between the Order and the Tribe. Both sides will attack at the same time, resulting in disaster. On the Order's side, War Minister Harrison will act as the main instigator. He will deliberately send a squad into the Beltus Forest. The person responsible for starting this terrible battle was none other than Harrison himself. The war was necessary for the mad scientist Justice, who wanted new experiments and test subjects to help carry out his secret plan to destroy the world. In this fantasy world, both humans and monsters have a special power called the astral body. Mastering this power allows them to become incredibly strong. The strength of this energy depends on both genetics and intense training. It allows people to use magic and fighting techniques and acts as a kind of mana. Unlike ordinary people, the Star Tribe holds a vast reserve of astral power. This unique strength draws the interest of a mad inventor who is determined to study it, setting the stage for a terrible battle in the Beltus Forest. Because of Justice's cunning plan, the entire squad led by Lieutenant Kaido will be destroyed, allowing the scientist to continue his experiments and achieve his goals. An unknown force revealed itself. Harold realized the hell he was in. His loud victory over the monster marked the start of a frightening chain of events, and it was unclear how to deal with them. Many parts of the original story were unclear, but it seemed that Justice's research might have started earlier than expected. The upcoming battle in the Belt only confirmed this idea. These thoughts kept Harold restless until night. The worst part was that there was almost no time left to think. Harold felt completely powerless. The next day, Shido planned to visit Harold and invite him for a walk. However, it turned out that Harold had already disappeared that morning without even finishing his duties. Shido and Robinson could not figure out where he had gone, even though they had planned to meet. Since this kind of behavior was normal for him, the friends decided to find out where he was. The worst part was that Harold left the Order's grounds without permission, breaking its rules, which was considered a serious offense. The young aristocrat rode at full speed, truly hoping to change his own fate and that of his companions, because he did not want to die. At last, he arrived at the Sumaragi family estate, surprising everyone there, as no one expected him to return in this way. Quickly, Harold explained he had urgent business and insisted on meeting Mr. Tasuka right away, without any formalities. The servant apologized and explained that the master was not home at the moment and would return only in the evening. Harold could wait inside the mansion. The young man grew even more annoyed, but agreed to wait and asked to be shown inside. The servant calmly did as he was asked. Suddenly, there was a noise in the yard. No one could figure out who had arrived without warning. It turned out to be Erica. She recognized everything right away. Using Harold's voice, the aristocrat grew anxious when left alone. Valuable time was slipping away, and expecting Tasuka to be home seemed unrealistic. On top of that, there was no certainty that visiting the Sumaragi family would change anything. Harold felt like a trapped animal. At that moment, a familiar voice came from behind the door, politely asking to come in. Instantly, all of Harold's worries disappeared because he knew exactly who was about to walk in. Erica stood there, calm and quiet. She saw Harold appear unexpectedly, knowing she wanted to support him, and now simply watched him in silence. The young man did not expect this meeting at all. Talking to Erica was not something he wanted, since he was facing much more serious problems, and any issues with the landlord's daughter seemed unimportant now. The aristocrat calmly asked what exactly she wanted. It was unlikely she came just to smile pleasantly. Erica simply replied that not every action needs a logical reason. The young woman reminded him that she is his fiancée, so as the guest of honor, Harold has the right to spend time with her while her parents are away. He firmly refused and asked her to leave the room. Still, he noticed she had not changed at all during this time. Erica did not listen. As the daughter of the head of the house, she was not allowed to leave the guest alone. She apologized for arriving unexpectedly, since no one had time to prepare for his visit. Harold stayed silent. After a few minutes, the young woman brought him aromatic green tea. While watching Harold, she noticed that something about him had changed. The Harold she remembered would never have sat there staring at the floor in front of strangers. His unexpected arrival raised many questions. Erica sensed that something very important was on his mind. Gently, she suggested taking a break and having some tea. Harold stayed silent. After a few minutes, he quietly asked how she was doing. The girl did not expect this question. She tried to find out what had happened to him, but decided not to push because he seemed very confused. Erica realized that to help, she needed to believe in him. Offering help without trust would only make him push her away again. She said she was grateful for her life and never complained to the gods. Still, Harold did not believe her. He thought she had been forced into marriage, so he wondered how she could truly feel this way. Erica said she grew up in the Sumaragi family, where she was surrounded by love, care, and kindness. Because of this kindness, she is even willing to. It felt like tearing out her own heart. Then she asked directly if the idea of marrying her really disgusted him so much. She wanted to know why he was against the engagement from the very start. She could see his emotions and anger. Her words made Harold pause because Erica had never asked about this before. Still, she kept going. Her goal was to find out why he accepted such a harsh reality without protest, silently enduring the pain. Harold replied that people were the cause of it all. Erica could not hold back and called him strong. She admired him and admitted she sometimes felt jealous, but was proud that he was her fiancé. Harold felt upset because he did not want to be won over with flattery. The girl explained that these were her true feelings, which she had kept in her heart for many years. Watching him stay on his chosen path and face every challenge without giving up made her admire him. Erica calmly explained that no matter how strong Harold was, everyone has their limits. In this world, some obstacles cannot be overcome alone. Annoyed, she suggested her fiancé rethink how he treats others. Without learning to trust people, he could end up hurting himself. Harold became angry and firmly asked her not to talk as if she knew him. Erica admitted that she knew little about him, but pointed out that he also knew nothing about her. Many people truly wanted to support Harold, but his stubbornness and closed nature kept them at a distance. He just does not notice it. Erica encouraged him to open his eyes and see that he is not alone in this world. Realizing this might make it easier for him to handle his problems. Her father and her beloved brother always support her. Clara and other people also care about her, though Harold never tries to notice them. Erica believed that one day Harold would be able to trust someone completely and even ask for help without feeling embarrassed. After the conversation, she quietly left the room. She did not want to show her feelings anymore, and only hoped to become someone close to him. Left alone, Harold spent a long time thinking about Erica's words, and for the first time since his new beginning, realized he could not handle this problem by himself. The girl's words stayed with him. Her advice to trust others and accept support remained deeply in his memory. Of course, she was right. He had only his body and what he knew about this world. These were the only things keeping him alive, because others could never get this knowledge. But if someone discovers keeping it a secret would lead to disaster. That was the reason for avoiding people. Now it became clear. Erica was right. Everyone has their limits. He had reached his. Then came a memory of relying on others in the past. Norman, Zen, Jake. Without their help, saving Clara and starting the new farming system would not have been possible. But full trust never came. There was always fear that his secret would be discovered. Most of all, Harold worried that any change in how these people acted could ruin the entire original story. Only now did this become clear, after Erica pointed it out directly. Everything she mentioned was something already known deep down, but admitting it to himself had been too difficult. Since arriving in this world, he worked to avoid death by saving others and creating vaccines. However, his actions led to changes in the story. Now his journey takes him to the Beltus Forest. Arriving at the Sumaragi estate, Harold finally understood the answer to his main question. It puzzled him why this realization had not come sooner. Facing death alone is madness. Support from others is always essential, and this was the answer he had been searching for all along. But is it too late? Without knowing the rest of the game's story, much of the advantage disappears. Ahead lies only chaos and uncertainty. Fear takes over. The world has already changed direction. Justice's research moves faster than the events in the game. Reiner and the other heroes might not have a chance to become who they were meant to be. Despite everything, Harold decided he could not just sit and wait while his friends faced danger fighting the tribe of Starseers. He felt he had to find a way to save them. These thoughts gave him new determination, and strength seemed to come back. Harold decided to act right away. Stopping Justice's research, helping Reiner recover, and rescuing his comrades became his priorities. He realized that losing meant death, and there was no way to hide from it in this world. From the very first day, accepting this was necessary. A young aristocrat made up his mind to do whatever it takes, even if it means risking everything, to find the best solution and change the course of this game. Erica's words made him realize he was not alone. Because of the people by his side, he still had a chance to survive. Only now did Harold realize that Erica had always tried to support him, even when he pushed her away. She was kind and patient, while he treated her poorly for no good reason. In the evening, just as promised, the head of the house, Mr. Tasuka, arrived. He apologized for being late and asked what brought the young guest to his home. Harold wasted no time and explained that he would join a group of knights on an expedition. The mission was set for the following week, and their destination was the Beltus Forest. The master quickly realized that traveling there would take at least a month because the forest was very far away. Still, he did not believe that the first task for the newcomers would be difficult. Harold agreed. At first, this seemed like a simple border patrol, but in truth, the mission would lead to a violent battle. This news left Tasuku stunned. The old man asked for an explanation about why there was so much confidence and what exactly would happen. Harold explained there was a traitor in the ministry who was secretly preparing for war in Beltus. The traitor aims to capture as many members of the isolated tribe as possible and use them in terrible experiments. Those who fall into his hands have no hope. Tasuka paused to think and agreed that if this was true, the whole country faced danger because of the traitor's actions. Harold knew that involving outsiders without proof was too risky. If he wanted support from the Sumaragi family, he needed to present solid evidence. He admitted that he does not have any evidence right now. However, Tasuka asked him to at least explain how he got such secret information. Harold asked if the name Jifult sounded familiar. The old man only nodded hesitantly, pretending to remember, but Harold felt sure he had heard the name before. The head of the family had only heard rumors about this mysterious spy who could uncover any secret. This was not the news Harold wanted. Some people even called Gifulte a fairy, assuming such creatures were real, because his abilities seemed almost supernatural. Tasuka looked confused and asked again if Harold really knew this traitor in person. The boy confirmed it and praised the old man for being so perceptive. Tasuka confirmed that Giffult is recognized as a master spy. He can access any information anywhere in the world. This makes him a true top-level agent. Despite everything, no one had ever seen this mysterious informant in person or knew if it was a man or a woman. Most people believed the informant was just an urban legend. If this is true, Harold's words become important, and he is clearly not lying. His confidence makes it seem as if he knows Giffult personally. Tasuka had often been surprised by this young man's words, but now Harold had gone beyond anything he expected. It was unsettling to think about what other secrets Harold might be keeping. Watching the old man's reaction, satisfaction spread through Harold. Tasuka's concern proved one thing: Giffult was real. Now the only thing left was to find out whether Giffult was a man or a woman. Even his appearance remained a mystery, as no one could describe this informant with certainty. Everything about him was an enigma. In the game Brave Hearts, Giffult played the role of a mentor character who explained the game mechanics and shared the locations of rare items. While not essential to the main story, this part led players to discover high-level monsters, a mysterious island, and even the final level of the main dungeon. Harold met this character many times in the game, so it makes sense that he could remember the information he was now sharing, using a made-up story as a cover. While inventing the story about Giffult, he had no idea how much it would affect Tasuku. Now it was important to stay calm and keep a straight face. A laugh broke the tension. Most importantly, Harold had earned the old man's trust, so he suggested they stop there and move on to the main topic. That same night, Tasuka spent a long time standing in the yard, thinking about everything he had heard. The words seemed almost impossible to believe. The next day, Harold set out on a journey with a group of knights. The experienced warriors quickly noticed the newcomer's low spirits and started cheering him up with jokes. Robinson and Shido promised to always stay by his side. They remembered how skillfully he defeated the monster, so he had nothing to fear. However, Harold called them naive optimists who only make things worse. He reminded them how they almost lost to the monsters themselves and suggested they pay closer attention to what is happening instead of just talking. Ila noticed that Harold was clearly upset, but Shido just shrugged as if to say he was always like that. Shido even joked that Harold had probably argued with his fiancée. Harold got angry, told everyone to be quiet and not to mention Erica. But Shido did not stop and teased him, saying everyone knew he managed to go on a date before the trip. Another joke, and Harold promised to stick his blade in him right now. The commanders noticed the argument and ordered everyone to be quiet and move forward. They both apologized and pretended to be calm, but tension still lingered for Harold. Other than talking with Tasuka, he had not yet figured out how to avoid death. Trying to warn everyone about the trap without proof would have sounded crazy. The only option was to urge caution, but no one paid attention. The only person who believed his story was Tasuka. Harold promised himself that he would do everything he could to earn the trust of someone who chose to help him without needing any proof. Harold asked the old man to prepare an imperial military uniform for him, which he could collect in the next town where their group would stop. This unusual request surprised Tasuka. The young man explained that he wanted to wear it under his armor. If a battle could not be avoided, the appearance of an imperial soldier might confuse the enemy and help reduce tension. When an agent of the Empire appears in the middle of the battle between the Order and the tribe of the Star Readers, no one will know who the real enemy is. Tasuka gave a warning about the danger, explaining that both sides could attack at the same time and no power would be able to save Harold from such an assault. Still, the boy insisted that he was not afraid of a group of weak opponents. All these plotters seem like insignificant pawns to him. He wants to find the real culprits behind all this chaos. The old man asked for some time to think. Harold understood the situation and explained that Tasuka could either refuse or come up with a new plan. However, the form still needed to be delivered on time. Tasuka agreed to prepare everything, though it weighed heavily on his heart because he knew it meant sending the boy straight to his death. Harold replied in a cold tone that he did not care, as long as Tasuka did not get in the way. The old man called him a stubborn fool, yet he admired Harold's youthful passion. Still, as the father of the future bride, concern was impossible to avoid. Harold was surprised by such honest words. He asked if the old man was upset, since they had already agreed to break off the engagement. However, Tasuka pointed out that the letter mentioned the engagement could only be broken by mutual agreement. He promised to respect whatever decision the young people made. Harold could not understand why the old man stayed so calm, because he thought Erica wanted to break off the engagement too. Tasuka noticed for the first time that Harold called Erica by her name without any titles. This was already a step forward. Harold wondered if even in a past life he could have treated the girl differently. Certain he had never called her by her real name, he always used sharp nicknames and kept his distance. All these years he kept insulting her, staying true to his usual behavior, never once considering how much it hurt her. Such a kind and sensitive girl is unlikely to ever forgive him for all of this. Yet, this seems to be exactly what Harold wanted. Now, looking back on his actions, a decision came to change, at least in the way others saw him. There was no way to tell if Tasuku was truly convinced, since his first loyalty was always to his own clan. This became even more true after Harold offended his daughter. Still, Harold truly wanted to stop this war. There was not much time left, and the preparations were not yet finished. Shido tried to sneak up from behind to scare the new recruit, but Harold immediately told him to back off. The knight was surprised, as he only wanted to lighten the mood. Instead, Harold responded with a stream of insults, calling everyone foolish and lazy for only thinking about relaxing and forgetting a battle could start tomorrow. An explanation was given that their patrol mission takes place along the border and unknown people in the forest might be spies from a hostile empire. This surprised Shido, but he took it seriously since the report mentioned more than 30 suspicious people. Relief came after recalling that the unit had 200 soldiers. Even if those approaching were Imperial scouts, the group could defeat them. Harold thought differently. He suspected that there were actually many more enemies. The whole group was walking straight into a trap. After thinking it over, Harold encouraged Shido and the others to reflect on their lives. If they want to survive, they must be ready for anything. Unlike Shido, Ila actually became worried. Even Lieutenant Kaito, who had seen the newcomer's strength more than once, started to doubt if this mission would turn out to be as easy as he first thought.